And on the trains, Hull Trains and London North Western Railway report reduced services due to industrial action. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Rafe, I'm assuming the notion of dropping Winnie to replace him with a tranny fills you full of repulsion.
Yes, I personally, as a Churchill historian, would love Churchill to be on the notes permanently. But yes, this is just part of this continuing war on our history that we often discuss on this channel. It's a long war, and it's just basically another attempt to gradually, or not so gradually actually, erase or rewrite our history. And the imagery on banknotes, on our passports, and the coins and stamps and all those sorts of things, they've traditionally always served to inspire pride in the nation. And those are really powerful symbols of our sovereignty and our identity. And it speaks a lot to, of course, to the changing fads and this desire we now see by our institutions, including the Bank of England, to create a new British identity, which is completely severed from the past.
I wonder, Rafe, we've had this conversation before. I wonder if a lot of this now is starting to feel a bit deliberate. Like, they know that Winston Churchill is worshipped and adored as one of the greatest ever Brits. They know we cherish the Union flag. They know we cherish our national anthems. Is that specifically why you think they're targeted?
That's precisely why it's being targeted. It's just that's what this is all about. The Bank of England is just part of this long march through the institution. The Bank of England, remember, in its new Bank of England Museum, well, it has a permanent exhibition on slavery. And we need to understand that the elites who control our institutions bear no comparison to the generations that occupied those institutions. They're cuckoos in the nest. They're embarrassed by Britain's history and its historical figures. And what these people used to understand love of nation, and they've replaced that with national self-loathing.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Wednesday, the 30th of July, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Peer and Miriam Cates.
One of the strongest ever recorded earthquakes hits eastern Russia, putting Japan, Philippines and parts of America on red alert for a destructive tsunami, with millions fleeing their homes. The first waves have already hit Hawaii. We'll have all the latest developments and advice from the Foreign Office.
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
A pathway to peace in the Middle East, or is it just political posturing? Sir Keir Starmer tells Israel to agree to a ceasefire in Gaza, or Britain will recognise a Palestinian state. Predictably, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fires back, accusing Starmer of appeasing the jihadist terrorists.
And the 5-day resident doctor strike ended this morning, but patients' relief may be short-lived as doctors threaten further industrial action if they don't get a pay rise.
And protecting our veterans, we'll be joined by the senior Conservative MP, Sir David Davis, whose petition to protect Northern Ireland veterans from prosecutions has topped the 180,000 mark.
Eight days after his death, Ozzy Osbourne's body will be taken in a hearse through his home city of Birmingham on the way to his private funeral later this morning.
And GB News' Charlie Peters speaks exclusively to a grooming gang survivor whose story of abuse highlights the scale of the police failure. You don't want to miss this.
And should the royals let us know where they go on holiday? Locals in the beautiful Greek island of Kefalonia claim they've seen the Prince and Princess of Wales enjoying a little downtime.
Well, they've got to have holiday somewhere.
Yes, why should they tell people where they're going? A bit of private time, bit of family time.
I'm intrigued to know whose yacht they're on. And of course, remember Diana, shortly before she died, she was on Mohammed Al Fayed's yacht. Remember that iconic photograph there with her sitting on the edge of the yacht?
Well, we didn't see them on our holiday, which was a road trip around Western Europe.
Right. Kefalonia, by the way, absolutely lovely island. Isn't that where Captain Corelli's Mandarin is based?
I think it is, yeah. Meant to be absolutely stunning. Never been there, but I think they deserve a holiday. I mean, I know a lot of
when you think what she's been through.
Exactly. A lot of the things they do seem glamorous, but they're hard work. They're always in front of the public eye.
Yeah.
Good to have some time as a family, isn't it?
We'd like to hear what you think. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/you'll stay. But first,
here is your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Very good morning. The headlines from the GB Newsroom just after 9:30. Breaking overnight, an 8.8 magnitude earthquake has struck off Russia's far east coast, triggering tsunami warnings across the Pacific, with the first waves hitting Hawaii this morning. Experts believe this to be the strongest earthquake since the disaster in Japan in 2011. The backlash is growing over the Prime Minister's plan to formally recognise the state of Palestine in September at the UN meeting in New York, with Israel's Prime Minister accusing the PM of monstrous terrorism. Resident doctors in England end their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked NHS staff for minimising disruption, but ruled out reopening pay talks. And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham as they pay their tributes to the rock legend. And history has been made, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and me, Miriam Cates, standing in for Bev Turner. Well, overnight, in an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, one of the strongest ever recorded, has hit eastern Russia.
Literally millions of people from Hawaii, some parts of the United States, West Coast and Japan have already been evacuated from their homes.
And the Foreign Office has advised Brits, if you're in the areas potentially affected by the earthquake or tsunami, you should follow the advice of the local authorities. Well, let's speak to the geologist, Professor Dougal Jerram, who joins us now. Professor Jerram, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Can you explain to us in layman's terms what has happened here? What happens under the seabed that gives rise to the threat of tsunamis?
Yes, good morning. This is the northern part of what's known as the Ring of Fire, where you have a series of volcanoes and associated earthquakes that form a ring all the way around the Pacific. And that's because the Pacific plate, the oceanic crust, is subducting under the continental crust around it. And that rubbing together of the plates causes these earthquakes.
And how alarmed are you Professor, by the fact this is measured at already the 6th largest earthquake ever recorded?
Yes, indeed. I mean, these areas, if you noted from the 2011 earthquake that hit Japan, which was up to a 9 magnitude, that they can generate very, very large earthquakes. And I think what's relieving in some way is the fact that they have this Pacific tsunami warning system, which has clearly taken place and alerted people of the potential dangers.
Is it possible accurately to predict from the size of the earthquake, from the distance from the coast that it's occurred, from the depth of the epicenter? Is it possible to predict from that how big tsunami waves might be, how frequent they may be, or is there a lot of unpredictability?
Miriam, that's a very good question. Part of the issue is how deep the earthquake is, but not only how big a magnitude the earthquake is, but also the direction in which the earth has been shaken. If it's a side-to-side shaking versus an up and down shaking, that makes a big difference in the outcomes. I think the important thing here is the earthquake in this instance is around about 12 miles, just over 12 miles deep. So it's a sort of intermediate depth. We're seeing waves up to 5.7 feet. That's just 1.75 meters in Maui. So it clearly can generate significant waves. But the warning system is the key. The warning system has alerted people to move to higher ground and get into safer scenarios. For example, Japan has asked for 1.9 million people to be evacuated. That's incredible.
And the earthquake was triggered off of Russia, Professor. How vulnerable is that part of Russia to earthquakes?
Yeah, so this is the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is home to a number of beautiful volcanoes, and you'll see some of your footage shows the flooding on some of the Kuril Islands, which is a series of islands with about 45 different volcanoes all the way down to Japan. So really, this whole region of Russia, of the Kuril Islands and Japan is susceptible to these earthquakes. What is in some ways useful is that the earthquake happened in sort of mid-morning local time, so people will have been up and about, which is better than when people are sleeping and there's more danger of buildings burying people. So hopefully the overall impact on humans will be relatively limited by the fact that the earthquake happened in daylight, but also that the tsunami warning system has allowed people to be evacuated to safer places.
And is that a big contrast to the earthquake on Boxing Day, the tsunami on Boxing Day all those years ago, when it appeared that people were caught completely by surprise?
Yes, Andrew, I heard that you mentioned that before. Indeed, that the sort of the Indian Ocean system wasn't set up then. The alert system wasn't in place, and if that was, then many lives could have been saved.
Oh.
And we've heard this morning that the UK Foreign Office has already started to issue travel advice. No doubt other countries around the world will be doing the same thing. How soon will we know that the danger is over? When will that possibility of these waves recede?
I think clearly the main impact of the large earthquake will dissipate over the next few hours. But there are the danger of aftershocks, some of which can be quite large, and they could potentially trigger further tsunamis. So really, over the next few days, people will be keen to be observing and listening to the local reports and keeping an eye. If holidaymakers are already out in Hawaii or other places, keep an eye on the local reports. The people are very well informed. The system is very well, people have learned from, for example, the Boxing Day tsunami, and they've generated a way in which we can try and understand and help people to minimize the risk.
Well, Dougal, Jerome, thank you so much. That was really informative, and I know you'll be watching developments closely throughout the day. Professor Dougal Jerome there, thank you very much. Really,
it just shows the difference between having early warning protection systems in, because that was the disaster in the, when was the tsunami in Boxing Day?
2004, and then of course the big one in Japan in 2011.
And it caught people unawares.
That's right, which is just such a simple thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, if you're asleep and in bed, you don't have the opportunity to evacuate.
Well, let's go to Hawaii, because we can talk now to Hawaiian resident Kelsey Shepherd. Kelsey, good morning to you. You're in the eye, literally, of a storm. What is the atmosphere like there?
Yes, so we evacuated to our friend's house up the hill and into a safe area. And many people traveled from their homes around the coast in the non-safe areas up to where we were. It's sad. We're evacuating, and hopefully there will not be any danger at this point.
And so far, has the communications from government and local authority, has that been smooth? Have people understood precisely what they need to do, or has there been any confusion?
The government has been very proactive, and I feel like we know where to get the updates. And so because of them, you could say we were updated. My husband and I were able to take the precautions, and knew people were doing the same because they gave us these tsunami alerts from hours in advance. So it gave us all time to prepare and then evacuate.
And can I ask, are people genuinely scared, Kelsey?
I would say fear is definitely an aspect, but I believe that we are now feeling safer just because We believe that it may have already hit. Haleiwa is a little bit flooded from what I would say is tsunami. I'm no research person on that, but I would say I'm feeling safer now.
Are there ever any drills or practices taken in Hawaii for events like this? We were discussing in the studio earlier how in Britain we don't really face the threat of any type of natural disasters, so we're not really familiar with the kind of procedures that might happen in countries like yours where those threats are more real. Are Hawaiian residents used to the idea of evacuations and watching for warning systems like you are today?
Yeah, they do siren tests to make sure that they will be signaled, and they regularly test their systems. So we were all able to be warned and knew what those siren sounds and alerts to all of our devices sounded like, which was very nice.
Well, listen, stay safe, Kelsey, and we're sending best wishes to you and your family and your friends, and because you really are in the eye of the storm, so the very best of luck to you. Thanks for joining us.
Well, coming up next, resident doctors have finished their 5-day strike, but more industrial action could well be on the cards if the government doesn't cough up more money for them. Should they? What do you think?
Absolutely not.
Andrew thinks no.
I think these doctors are being greedy with a capital G. They got 22.5% last year. They're now after 30%. No.
It's interesting how the public supported them the first time round, but the tide has really turned.
It's disintegrated for them. And yet their mandate is for strikes for up to 6 months.
Astonishing. Well, should public sector workers be banned from striking? That seems to be an increasing view on the right of politics.
Yeah, certainly the view of Kemi Badenoch. But first, if you're in search of some of that elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heatwave is now easing across parts of Greece and also parts of Turkey, but elsewhere across Europe, still some humid air creating thundery downpours. But across the west, particularly across Portugal, Spain, most of France, it's largely dry, plenty of sunshine. But across parts of Germany, northern parts of Italy, still a chance of some quite intense thundery downpours. And also still across parts of Greece and Bulgaria, we could start to see some outbreaks of rain. But otherwise, for the large majority, plenty of sunshine and warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Dan was one of the victims of the attack, and he was just, within touching distance from the leading suicide bomber. And when that bomb went off, it killed 6 people.
It's still really surreal. It's still a kind of strange thought to realise that I was right in the middle of what happened that day. And even though it's 20 years, it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
The pain and the emotional torment that goes with that is just as fresh now as when it just happened.
Mm. And when you think back to that morning, because you've written a book about that day and your experience since, you actually were considering not going into work that day.
Yeah, my whole story of 7/7 is what I kind of term as sliding door moments. There's so many opportunities that were presented to me to do something different, or to stick to my normal routine and not step outside of that. And yeah, there's countless times where if I would have made a different decision, then I wouldn't have been on that train at that time. If I'd have got up on time, if I hadn't missed my stop, there's so many things that I can think back on and think, if only I've done this, if only I've done that. But it serves no purpose now because what's happened has happened.
Well, you were horrendously injured, but people died on that bus that day.
Yeah, I mean, from the area of the train that I was on when the bomb went off, I'm the only one that survived. He killed everybody around me. And that's incredibly tough to live with, to know that you survived something that everybody around you didn't. And I was pretty much laying in and amongst dead bodies and body parts for about an hour and 40 minutes before I was taken out the tunnel.
And what do you remember about the murderer
I think the most terrifying thing about it is just how calm he was. There was no fear, there was no hesitation, and the most scariest thing of all was he just looked like everybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:48 a.m. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So resident doctors in England have ended their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute. They're after a 29-30% pay rise.
But the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has thanked NHS staff for minimising the disruption, but ruled out reopening those pay talks. So are we likely to see more industrial action soon, Andrew? We know what you think about it.
Well, I think they're being greedy. So let's talk to a GP and British Medical Association member, Dr Bashar Mukherjee, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Doctor. We've talked to you before on this programme. I'm not sure that you think the 29% pay rise is realistic, do you?
Good morning. First of all, I want to say that I don't think Wes Streeting really wants this to be an ongoing legacy of his time as a health secretary for continued strikes. And I think it's going to be very disappointing if we continue to have strikes. So he has to strike a deal with the BMA members and the resident doctors. Whether, we get to the straight up 29%, that's a different story. The promise that he himself made was a journey towards full pay restoration. And at the moment, that journey seems like a really, really long way away. So, he needs to come up with a good offer. And if that is provided, then I don't think any resident doctor wants to strike at all.
But you didn't answer my question. Do you support the resident doctors calling for a 29% pay rise?
I think so. I do, because that was always the ask from the very beginning. Full pay restoration was always the ask. So if I supported the strikes up until now, it was down to the same principle, essentially. And what we have to understand is that even though 29% seems like a really big number, a big percentage of a small number still ends up in a very small number at the end of it. So it's still going to cost the same amount as it has been stated from the last 3 years now, which is going to cost £1 billion to essentially put an end to all these strikes, which is 0.05% of the entire NHS budget. It's really not asking for a lot.
Well, except that it's each and every year in perpetuity. But you're absolutely correct that junior doctors, resident doctors' pay has been eroded by inflation, but so has the pay of every single public sector worker in this country. We have had record inflation. We have had record inflation for the last 20 years. We've had tax threshold freezes and all those kind of things. No one's in doubt that the cost of living has gone up, especially for public sector workers. But why do doctors deserve full pay restoration when teachers, nurses, bin men, all the other kind of public sector workers that have seen equally their pay eroded and actually earn less to start with, why don't they deserve full pay restoration?
We've never said that they don't deserve full pay restoration.
But it would bankrupt the state to offer that, wouldn't it? So why are doctors a special case?
Will it though to pay fairly to all the...
Well, we have 3 trillion of debt and 100 billion interest payments every year. Yes, it would bankrupt the state.
And whose fault is that? In terms of how the government has been spending the money, how the government continues to spend more money on the NHS, which is going towards private companies and not towards frontline staff, towards managerial staff. And, you have to ask the question as a taxpayer, rather than pointing a finger at the service providers, you have to think about who's doing the budgeting and who's spending that money. It's very easy to point a finger at, and scapegoat the resident doctors and say that making an unfair, ask for fair pay when the rest of the world can and is offering them much better deals, essentially. And you have to see that the nurses and other healthcare staff are also, it's looking very possible that they might also be going into strikes. Definitely the NMC are considering striking as well. So, I completely agree that across the board, a lot of public services are very unhappy with their pay.
Can I just interrupt you? You haven't mentioned once patients and the impact of this 6 days of strikes on patients. We know of hundreds, if not thousands, of cancer appointments have been cancelled. People could die, couldn't they, Dr. Mukherjee, because of the actions of these very well-paid doctors?
There's been no links found of causality in terms of, deaths and strikes from research. At the same time, this is an equal responsibility of the resident doctors as well as the government. And this is why the strikes need to stop and a priority needs to be put on resolving these strikes. And this is down to the health secretary. It's unfair to say that, the patients' lives are on the doctor's hands when actually when they are at work, they don't have the resources. Even when they're at work, they don't have the resources to prevent deaths. And we have been seeing excess deaths on the days when they're actually at work. And this is down to an overall failure of the NHS and breakdown of the NHS. And this is just going to keep getting worse if we carry on striking this way and, a deal is not struck.
Well, Dr. Mukherjee, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Andrew, I do think there's a moral element to this. When private sector workers go on strike, customers can go elsewhere. But in our public NHS system, that's just not possible.
Well, and are the Tories on something when they say, perhaps we have to ban doctors going on strike? The police can't go on strike, nor can the military.
I increasingly would agree with that. Well, we'll see you very shortly. There's lots more coming up on today's show, including the latest news about Israel and Palestine.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead. Plenty of sunny spells, though there is the risk of showers, but feeling warm where you do catch any sunshine. The main risk of showers this morning is likely across northwestern parts of England and then later on into parts of Lancashire and parts of the southeast. But any showers should be mostly isolated, and if they do occur, they should be mostly light. The best of the sunshine is likely this afternoon through across central parts of Scotland, parts of Wales and southwest England. That's where we'll see the sunniest of conditions, but it's going to be feeling warm for all. Highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius, and even across the north will start to reach the 20s, particularly across northeastern parts of England. And then later on we'll start to see a little bit of a change, particularly across western parts of Scotland. Thicker cloud moving through here, and this at times could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain. And similar to across Northern Ireland, we could start to see some showery outbreaks by the time we reach the end of the day. But northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, it should be mostly dry. Any showers, once again, mostly isolated. Then as we head through into the evening and overnight, once again we'll start to see more clouds, some showery outbreaks push their way in from the west, perhaps a few showers still lingering on across the far north of Scotland. But what you will notice is that things will start to feel a little warm and muggy by the time we reach the early hours of the morning, particularly across the south, where some of these showers could start to turn quite heavy during the early hours of the morning. But many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to low teens. Now, heading into Thursday, once again a risk of showers, but these showers could potentially become quite intense across central and southern parts, especially across the southeast. We could start to see some hail and some frequent lightning at times, so do keep an eye on the Met Office website for any warnings. Once again, some showers across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but otherwise, once again, feeling warm in any sunshine. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Expect delays on the M90 southbound at Junction 3 due to a vehicle fire. Roadworks have closed the A487 from Gasworks roundabout to Fishguard Square roundabout with diversions. The M62 eastbound in Warrington is delayed due to a collision between junction 10 and 11, closing 2 lanes. The A38 northbound in Staffordshire is slow due to an incident between the A512 and A5132. Northamptonshire's A14 eastbound is shut between the M1 Catthorpe interchange and junction 1. And on the trains, Hull Trains and London North Western Railway face reduced services due to industrial action. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of July. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
A pathway to peace in the Middle East or just political posturing?
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Sir Keir Starmer tells Israel to agree to a ceasefire in Gaza, or Britain will recognise a Palestinian state. Well, Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu fires back, accusing Starmer of appeasing jihadist terrorists.
The PM says it will inject life into the peace process, but Donald Trump shrugs off the recognition of Palestine. But will it ease the suffering in Gaza?
One of the strongest ever recorded earthquakes hits eastern Russia, putting Japan, the Philippines and part of the United States on red alert for a destructive tsunami, with millions fleeing their homes.
The first waves have already hit Hawaii, and we'll have all the latest developments and advice from the Foreign Office.
Now, protecting our veterans, we're going to be joined by the leading Conservative MP, Sir David Davis, whose petition to protect Northern Ireland veterans from prosecution has just smashed through the 180,000 mark.
The funeral later this morning.
And GB News' Charlie Peters speaks exclusively to a grooming gang survivor whose story of abuse highlighting the scale of police failure.
Now, for a while, we thought that police officers were merely failing to act in Rotherham, but now there is fresh evidence that they were part of the abuse, and we reveal that in one shocking case, the police watchdog gave away the name of an alleged abuser, leading to no further action against the former constable.
And should the royals let us know where they go on holiday? Well, locals in the beautiful Greek island of Kefalonia claim they've seen the Prince and Princess of Wales enjoying a little downtime. That interview with the doctor before the break about the doctor's strike was really interesting. I mean, it is true that their pay has been eroded, but nowhere near as much as many other public sector workers.
It just looks greedy because they got that bumper pay rise last year, 22.5% more than anybody else. They got it straight after the general election. Why didn't the Health Secretary attach strings? No more strikes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and what's interesting is Wes Streeting seems to be heading that way, at least cracking down a little bit harder on the strikes, whereas the government's employment rights bill is going in completely the opposite direction, giving people more power to strike, reducing the requirements on the unions. It's hard to see how those two positions are going to be reconciled.
I know, and all we know is going to mean that people are going to wait longer and longer for their cancer appointments, their heart appointments. It's going to be catastrophic.
It's really,
They will, because they're going to strike again.
Absolutely. It is diminishing people's confidence in the NHS as a whole, I think, not just the doctors.
And are the nurses about to go on strike next?
We'll see. Well, we'd love to know what you think about this and all the other issues we are discussing today. So please send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Now, we start with some breaking news this morning. That overnight, we've learnt that an 8.8 magnitude earthquake has struck off Russia's far east coast, triggering tsunami warnings across the Pacific, with the first waves hitting Hawaii earlier this morning. The Russian Pacific town of Severokurilsk has reported tsunami waves of over 3 metres. This earthquake appears to be the strongest quake globally since Japan's 2011 disaster. Japan's weather agency says it expects a similar-sized waves to reach Russia to reach the large coasts of Japan, as the authorities are urging people to seek out higher ground. Over in the US, warnings have also been issued for Alaska and Hawaii, with President Trump confirming alerts are in place and also seeking residents there to seek higher ground. The Hawaiian governor has signed an emergency declaration and called for the evacuation of some coastal areas. Meanwhile, Brits have been issued tsunami warnings for 17 different countries by the Foreign Office, urging them to follow the advice of local authorities.
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Sir Keir Starmer is facing pushback after announcing Britain will go ahead with the decision regarding Palestine at the upcoming UN gathering, unless Israel allows more aid to access Gaza, stops West Bank annexation and agrees to a ceasefire and a long-term peace process. He added that Hamas must also release hostages, disarm and step away from Gaza's future government. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hit back, accusing Sir Keir of rewarding monstrous terrorism and warning that appeasement always fails. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, who met with the PM on Monday, claimed they didn't discuss the move, but said Sir Keir is entitled to take a position. Speaking to Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel earlier, she doesn't believe it will help with the aid crisis.
Britain simply hasn't been leveraging its influence. It hasn't been at the negotiating table. It's not really done anything in terms of making sure that we're stepping up to release the hostages, ensure that Hamas has no future role to play. All the British government has done is effectively issue condemnations to Israel, which I think has emboldened Hamas, and that has not helped anybody. It's certainly not helped the people in Gaza. It's not helped aid get into Gaza.
Now, resident doctors in England ended their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute with the government. The BMA is demanding a 29% rise to reverse pay erosion back to 2008. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked NHS staff for minimising disruption, but ruled out reopening pay talks. Thousands of appointments were affected, despite efforts to keep planned care running over the weekend. And an officer with the police watchdog revealed the full name of a former officer who was under investigation for grooming gang abuse, according to GBNews investigations. The mistake led to the abuse case being dropped, with the man released without charge. Elizabeth, not her real name, says she was held and abused in a flat for 10 weeks in 2004. She came forward in March, naming one of her abusers as PC, only realising this year it likely have referred to his job as a police constable. Her report followed the arrest of 2 other ex-officers over similar allegations.
I was expected to know it, even though I weren't in with there with the nickname. They just turned it round on me to make it look like I'm accountable. South Yorkshire Police shouldn't be investigating themselves for a number of reasons. It was that police force that failed us. It was those police officers that have been accused, that have been raping children.
I've got a couple.
Disclosed has neither affected the key decisions made in the criminal investigation, nor will it affect any future decisions. And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham. The hearse will pass the Black Sabbath bench at 1 o'clock, where thousands have paid tribute to the 76-year-old rock legend. A brass band from Boston Brass will accompany the procession today. The Osbourne family has covered the cost for the event, with his wife Sharon and children Kelly and Jack following the procession before going to the private funeral later on today. And history has been made at the Royal Observatory, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first ever woman appointed royal astronomer. Approved by the King, she takes on the role, originally created in 1675 to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Professor Doherty is a leading space physicist and joins a line of prestigious scientists dating back to John Flamsteed. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. But now it's back to Andrew and Miriam.
Well, hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and me, Miriam Cates, standing in for Bev Turner. Well, let's have a look at what you've been saying in gbnews.com and /you'll say no support at all for the doctors' strike.
I bet there isn't.
David saying it's nothing but greed. Caniani, fed up, says that they're working overtime at fantastic rates to reduce the extra long waiting list. And, of course, this is taking us backwards. So not a lot of support, which last time they went on strike. What's the last sense of strike?
There was more support.
There was.
And, of course, they no longer call themselves junior doctors. They're resident doctors now. But are nurses about to go on strike? Are consultants about to go on strike? This is going to wreck the government strategy, of course, to cut waiting lists.
The Labour government came in and assumed that because they're Labour and they historically have a good relationship with the unions, if they just appeased them and paid their first demand, then it would all go away, which, of course, the opposite has happened.
I think when they paid them 22.5% last year, there should have been a string attached. You're not going on strike for another 3 years.
Absolutely.
Or 4 years.
Although, interestingly, this time, the NHS are telling hospitals to try and employ locums and other doctors over time. More expensive, but they're trying to maintain the number of appointments, whereas last time, I think 1.5 million appointments were cancelled or something along those lines. Also, some comments about the situation in Gaza, which we're going to be discussing with Christopher Hope in a moment, pointing out that our own Prime Minister is trying to recognise a Palestinian state, while actually some Arab states have come out last night and told Hamas to lay down their arms, to disband and allow the Palestinian Authority to attempt to create a Palestinian state. So our own Prime Minister being more anti-Israel even than the Arab states surrounding it.
Yeah, and all his demands are for Israel. Nothing for Hamas, not even a demand that they give back the hostages, of which there are more than 50.
Exactly. Well, let's bring in Christopher Hope now, who joins us in the studio. Why now? Why has Keir Starmer come out now and said that we were going to recognise Palestine as a state?
Well, let's rewind here. It is a manifesto commitment of the Labour government to do this, so it was going to happen in the 5 years of this government.
Been for years, though, Chris.
Yeah, we had a Labour government for 14 years before last July, so now they're in power, they can do it. It was a big issue when Miliband was leader. Yeah. They got through all that. So they were going to do it. It's a matter of timing. So why now? Well, France said last week they were going to recognise unilaterally Palestine at September's UN General Assembly meeting around the 22nd, 23rd of September. Clearly, that almost forced the pace with the government. You've got hundreds of Labour MPs demanding it.
Last week it was the wrong time.
Well, it's a timing issue. So what's changed, appears to have changed, is the images we saw last week on the Daily Express and elsewhere of the suffering. What's happening in Gaza is it's turned from being a conflict with two sides who are clearly at odds into a humanitarian disaster, a near-famine situation. So clearly, in fact, Sir Keir Starmer said that he thought the moment to act was now to inject life into this peace process. This is deeply controversial. We've heard from Kemi Badenoch saying that this wouldn't bring any peace there. It won't end the war, won't get aid into Gaza. Mike Huckabee in the US, of course, one of the senior figures in the Trump administration, he says it's like letting the Nazis have a victory after World War II because, of course, Hamas still controls Gaza. But last night on the flight back to America on Air Force One, our colleague Bev Turner was on that flight. Donald Trump, the US president, he gave basically a massive shrug to what's happened. Here's what he told us earlier.
We never discussed it, surprisingly. It was never really discussed. Maybe a little bit at the news conference, but he was sort of discussing it with you. We never did discuss it, and we have no view on that. We're going to get a lot of money to the area so they can get some food. He's going to also. I think the European Union is going to put up money too for food, and hopefully it's going to be properly distributed, and it will be. I think it will be. We have some pretty good response on people for the distribution of the food.
OK, Donald Trump there focusing on the aid. Now, the UK is airdropping yesterday with the Jordanian government aid into Gaza. But the crucial word there, and it's hard to hear for those on the radio because he's on the plane, and that's how they record him on the plane with the US press pool. He said, we have no view on that. So that's quite a big shrug of the shoulders.
Yeah.
It's a we don't care what the UK does. Quite dismissive there of our biggest ally. We don't matter.
And Chris, I take a more cynical view than you about why Starmer's done it now. There was a growing backbench revolt. Huge. Ministers openly telling anybody, oh, listen, we want the Prime Minister to commit to recognition of a Palestinian state by that United Nations meeting in September. We know the SNP were going to force a Commons vote. He'd have lost it. Labour would have lost it.
Probably would have lost it, and we had a similar reversal as on benefits. The different thing here is the government is committed to doing it. They have been pushed forward, I think, by France last week. I think definitely the images coming out of Gaza showing the starvation of these children has moved the PM to where he is now. As he says, the terrible suffering in Gaza, he says, meant it was a moment to act, to inject life into peace. So clearly what's happened is this war between these two, the Hamas and the country Israel, but now it's into a different stage, a humanitarian relief stage, and that's what's driven this policy.
All right, that's Chris Hope, who is our political editor. Well, we're now going to talk to Sir David Davis, who is a leading Tory MP who's been running an extraordinary campaign which has a lot of support with GB News viewers and listeners to prevent our boys, and women, of course, who served in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, facing potential criminal prosecution.
David, tell us about this petition and what you want to happen next.
Good morning, Miriam. Lovely to see you again. The petition's now crossed 180,000. I think we'll get it over 200,000 before it shuts down. So if anybody hasn't signed, please go onto the parliamentary website and sign up. What's plain is that we have won the public argument. This is about soldiers who fought in Northern Ireland, operated under yellow card rules. There's a special rules to keep everything they do within the law, operated under judicial oversight. Everything they did was looked at afterwards. And now all of a sudden, because of the sort of last knockings of the peace process not being resolved properly, we find ourselves with those same soldiers, heroes, many of them, being dragged back to court or facing the risk of being dragged back to court in their 60s, 70s, 80s even, to face charges that will never end in prosecution, never end in conviction, because this is too long ago, and anyway, the issues were resolved at the time. But all for politics, all to basically appease the Sinn Féin Northern Ireland apologists for the IRA, and to appease the Irish government. All of these things, our government is sacrificing our soldiers to those political ends. That's the basic argument. And as I say, we've won every argument. We had a debate in Westminster Hall. It was the most packed Westminster Hall I've ever seen, indeed anybody's ever seen. We had really, really strong arguments from many, many Tories and others who had served themselves, told what the story was really like, and a few rather weak sort of whips handout arguments from some Labour members who frankly looked embarrassed when they were making the argument. So, we won the public argument. The question is trying to make the government actually do something about it.
So, David, you must be in contact with some of the veterans who may potentially face prosecution. What does it feel like to go for decades with that hanging over you, knowing that you've served to the best of your ability? Of course, warfare and these kind of operations are never clean, they're never smooth. But what does it feel like to know that there is a possibility of that, even as these men go in late into their lives in their 70s and 80s?
Well, I'd say two things. I mean, I saw a few of them not that long ago in Hereford, and these were not soft characters, but they were clearly distressed by this non-stop sword of Damocles hanging over them, if I can mix my metaphors. But the other thing I'd say is they feel betrayed. They feel that the government who they gave absolute service to put their lives on the line. You know, some of them died in Northern Ireland. Let's not kid ourselves. Hundreds of soldiers were killed in Northern Ireland. They put their lives on the line, and then in their retirement, they're betrayed. And that's terrible for them. But it's also terrible for today's soldiers. I mean, if you're about to go out and do some difficult operation, and as you say, in the fog of war, and then come back and in 20 years' time, having served your country today, in 20 years' time, you're going to face lawfare in your old age, well, people are not going to sign up. Or if they do sign up, they're going to resign rather than take on anything which is remotely difficult. And, you know, we have some of the best soldiers in the world, certainly the best special forces in the world. And it would be a great victory for the enemies of civilization if this revisiting of the Northern Ireland Troubles ends up destroying the retirements of, frankly, our military heroes.
And David, of course, it's very one-sided, isn't it? Our military figures face the spectre of prosecution, but because of the deal Blair did as part of the Northern Ireland Agreement, IRA terrorists, gunmen who brutally mowed down people who were innocent, killed many of our soldiers, they've got a lifetime pardon.
Yeah, and that's right. And nearly 2,000 people were killed by them. And the thing to remember, the thing that was so annoying for the soldiers was this finding that some of the killings in one of the battles were unlawful. That's the phrase they used. Every single killing by the IRA, and for that matter, the UVF and the UDA, don't forget there were terrorists on the other side too. Every single one was unlawful. Every single one was a murder. And these people pose as soldiers. They talk about the East Tyrone Brigade and the Armagh Brigade and so on. They did things that no soldier in the British Army certainly would ever countenance doing. Murdered their prisoners, tortured people, blew up civilians, women, children, only for the sake of getting publicity for their cause, not for any military aim. These are things no soldier in Britain, indeed most of our allies, would do. And yet they're now trying to suggest that decisions made in the heat of battle, while you're being shot at by somebody else, maybe after you've been blown up, in the case of Loughgall already, this is somehow illegal. It's not. It was actually them doing their job and, frankly, saving lives, because it was only the intervention of the military that brought to an end the massive, almost genocidal killing spree that the IRA and its antagonists went into in the early parts of the Troubles.
Davis, thank you for joining us this morning, and good luck with your campaign, David Davis there. I do think that's such a good point about reducing people's willingness to sign up. If you know that...
Why would you enlist?
Yeah.
Or to be a copper either.
Exactly,
when,
yeah.
It's happened in various high-profile police cases,
Yeah.
if you're then potentially going to be prosecuted for doing your job.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's never served, I cannot imagine what it must be like, the pressure of a live situation where there's live ammunition, having to make those split-second decisions. And you may make mistakes, but you've got to know that you're covered in future, otherwise it's not worth it.
And they were defending this country, or Queen and country, from murderous terrorists who, as David said, brutally picked on children and women and families to get publicity.
Exactly.
Think of the bomb at the war terminal in Enniskillen on Remembrance Sunday.
That's right, but like you say, the police have suffered similar drop in numbers of police officers being willing to carry firearms, again, because they're worried about prosecution. But it just makes us all less safe, doesn't it? If
it does. It does.
Well, it's the final week to see how you could become £54,321 richer in our biggest cash giveaway to date. Lines close on Friday, the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details you need.
There's only 2 days left to see how you could be our biggest cash winner to date. £54,321 in tax-free cash is up for grabs in our summer Great British giveaway. Cash to spend on anything you like. All of that cash could send you on a holiday, boost your savings, or just send some of those dates day-to-day financial stress is packing. You have to hurry as lines close at 4 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Well, up next, drill, baby, drill. That's the message US President Donald Trump sends to Britain if we want to reduce our energy costs. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Despite what Donald Trump's saying about ceasefires and whatever, reports have been coming out overnight about continuing missile attacks.
Well, British expat David Mason was caught up in those missile attacks on Friday when he and his son barely escaped with their lives after an Iranian missile exploded next to them in a bombing raid in northern Israel.
Let's speak to David because David joins us now from his hospital bed, actually, to tell us about this terrifying ordeal. David, how are you?
I'm alive. I'm alive. That's one thing.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
How bad was it? A close call, was it?
It was very close. The missile hit about 25 feet away from us. God. It blew me completely, that's basically off my feet. And it was just dark and just blood everywhere, basically. I landed. As I woke up, there was a body. I was on top of a body which I thought was my son. And as I cleared all the debris away, I looked up and realized my son was standing there with a hole basically in his neck, shot. Oh. And, I basically went into father mode, as my other children said, dad mode. Took my shirt off, wrapped it around his neck to make sure that he wasn't bleeding more. And then he turned to me and said, "But Dad, you're splurting blood from everywhere. My arms, my back, my head." And I said, "Don't worry about me."
GB News, the People's Channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
10:26 Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and not Bev Turner, as it says up there. She's still in America. Miriam Cates, of course.
I think she's on a plane. She might be joining us later.
She might be. We're joined, of course, by the terrible twosome, the broadcaster Mike Pound and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Boys, gentlemen.
Well, I'm a convert now to women's football. And can I say, it's not just necessarily because of the fact that they're European champions again, but when I saw the way the country reacted yesterday to that parade, the way it drew people together, the way it brought people out onto the streets, the sheer, joy and exhilaration and patriotism of this magnificent achievement on European soil, first team ever to win on on foreign soil for this country, and the way it's brought us all together, I just think it's absolutely revelatory what they've done.
Well, Mike, just think what happened on this very day in 1966.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely
was it
right.
this day today?
No, it was 31st.
Yeah.
It was 35th. Is it the 30th?
30th, yes. We won the World Cup. Yeah, or as they say around West Ham won the
Were you in Wembley for the match?
Damn right I was.
Were you really?
Of course I was, yeah. But the interesting thing about this is that it was extraordinary. It's nice to see Chloe Kelly following my, her use of slightly fruity language, which is something I occasionally plead guilty to. But I've known Chloe since she's about 10 years old.
Really?
Oh, God, her brother Jack still plays football with my son. She's from Hanwell, where I am.
Wow.
She really, because she's got three brothers who are triplets, and another two brothers, and she played in the legendary Little Ealing Primary School versus St Mark's Primary School, one of the great chaotic punch-ups of West London football.
One position I've got to make...
When she was little, she used to run up and down the line, throwing the ball back on. She's also got a sister called Paris, who is the most girly girl you've ever met. Used to come to the football matches on her Barbie tricycle.
Does that mean you can't play football?
Now, one thing I've got to make absolutely clear, having covered football for the last 30 years, mostly on radio and all that, is that if we don't give the England Lionesses manager, Ms Wiegman, a damehood immediately, then we are a broken society.
An honorary damehood, of course, because she's not British.
I totally agree. Nevertheless,
she's got an honorary MBE.
Speaking of being British, I don't know if you noticed that
Speaking of being British, this is so GBNews, isn't it?
It's a good segue here. Wait for it. I don't know if you noticed, they were interviewed immediately after the match, as they often do, and several of the players said, well, of course we fought back, we're English, and they referred to their Englishness and their characteristic. I thought that's really interesting. It's not a kind of identity that's often talked about. Now, obviously, they're the England team.
Exactly,
we don't have football in the UK.
And they beat Wales.
They beat Wales.
Remember, they were
wearing interesting.
They were an England shirt, and they had the three lines on their shirt. So obviously they were playing for England, so they were distinctively English. But what gets my goat is that the England man's manager, right, who lost 2 European finals, and Ms Wiegman has won 2 European finals, is a Knight of the Realm. He's been awarded for failure. Complete failure.
Quite a high-risk job, though. I think
Miriam,
that's danger money.
Your point's really interesting. I mean, all the years I was in Northern Ireland, we had a real problem with the words United Kingdom. Because the United Kingdom is England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland. And, of course, Great Britain excludes Northern Ireland, and England excludes it. And so the words do matter. And I think because most people actually thought this was a British achievement. I like to think it was an achievement of the islands.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was an English achievement. I'm sorry. It's absolutely English.
I didn't say it wasn't. I just said I'd like to.
And actually, they did whack Wales 6-1.
6-0, indeed, yeah.
I have to confess, chaps, I didn't watch it.
Well, it doesn't matter because I'm talking about the celebration. In the Mall yesterday. Now, and again, there were some doomsayers who said, "Oh, what are they having it in the Mall for? A few hundred people will turn up, thousands turn up." But it was the sheer joy of it, and also there has been a reluctance, even amongst footballers wearing the men's England shirt, to express their love for their country. At least 2 of the English players and Ms Wiegman, who's not even English,
Dutch,
exactly, and has won a trophy with the Dutch as well as 2 for England. That's how successful she is.
Isn't it marvellous?
They all said it's great. We're English. We're proud to be English. Proud to be English.
Yeah, well, it's like the people who are Manchester United supporters on Monday morning. But look, I mean, Michelle Agnew, they call her Big Mitch. I mean, her name apparently in the Ghanaian actually means saviour of the nation. That's what Agyemang actually means.
It does.
Was she the young girl who scored some goals during the tournament?
Well, she scored, absolutely. She came on and came on as a sub, and she's absolutely put in some crunching tackles. But, I mean, I was at Hanwell Town Bedfont last night, and there must have been, this is not non-league football, pre-season friendly. Everybody was talking about this.
That's good.
And it's quite and yet, these, like Mike, they were not contemptuous of women's football, but just uninterested in the past. Suddenly, the dial's been turned. And they don't dive around so much as we do.
In the 1966 World Cup, could you see anything? Because the stadium was so full. You couldn't see anything.
Well, you couldn't see anything on TV because it was black and white, and our televisions in those days were about the size of an A4.
I wasn't watching it in black and white. I was watching it in green and red and white because. But it's an extraordinary atmosphere.
It must have been.
You know, I was quite young. I was about 18 or something.
And the 4th goal, was it a goal?
Well, it went in off the crossbar. I mean, to be honest,
the third actually. Sorry to correct you. It was the third. It came down off the crossbar, and that's why Well, Jeff Hurst then scored the fourth goal. That was the famous quote. They think it's all over. It is now.
Kenneth Wolstenholme.
Kenneth Wolstenholme, absolutely.
Now we've relitigated the 1966 World Cup. I think we're going to have to move.
So just the last one. Back in the day, I used to be a great friend of Armenia, and as a result of being a friend of Armenia, I was barred from ever going to Azerbaijan. And so the Azerbaijani embassy invited me to try to make peace with me. And they said, "You do realise that the referee in that game was Azerbaijani?" I said, "I thought he was a Russian referee." "No, Azerbaijani." And I said, "You've not convinced me."
Right. So, are we launching a campaign here at GB News that Sabrina Wiegman
Let's
gets
discuss
a game
this on the next hour, because
let's do it now.
We have to move on.
Let's do it now.
To your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Can we
Very good morning. The latest headlines just after 10:30. Breaking overnight, an 8.8 magnitude earthquake has struck off Russia's far east coast, triggering tsunami warnings across the Pacific. Workers have now evacuated the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant, and experts believe this to be the strongest quake since the disaster in Japan in 2011. The backlash is growing over the Prime Minister's plan to formally recognise the state of Palestine in September at the UN meeting in New York, with Israel's Prime Minister accusing Starmer of monstrous terrorism. Resident doctors in England have ended their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked the NHS staff for minimising disruption, but ruled out reopening pay talks. And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham as they pay their tributes to the rock legend. And history has been made, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, don't go away, because coming up next, find out about the latest transgender turmoil hitting grassroots tennis.
Yeah, the former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis will join us to explain all. Don't miss it. Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead. Plenty of sunny spells, though there is the risk of showers, but feeling warm where you do catch any sunshine. The main risk of showers this morning is likely across northwestern parts of England, and then later on into parts of Lancashire and parts of the southeast. But any showers should be mostly isolated, and if they do occur, they should be mostly light. The best of the sunshine is likely this afternoon through across central parts of Scotland, parts of Wales and southwest England. That's where we'll see the sunniest of conditions, but it's going to be feeling warm for all. Highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius, and even across the north will start to reach the 20s, particularly across northeastern parts of England. And then later on we'll start to see a little bit of a change, particularly across western parts of Scotland. Thicker cloud moving through here, and this at times could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain. And similar to across Northern Ireland, we could start to see some showery outbreaks by the time we reach the end of the day. But northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, it should be mostly dry. Any showers, once again, mostly isolated. Then as we head through into the evening and overnight, once again we'll start to see more clouds. Some showery outbreaks push their way in from the west, perhaps a few showers still lingering on across the far north of Scotland. But what you will notice is that things will start to feel a little warm and muggy by the time we reach the early hours of the morning, particularly across the south, where some of these showers could start to turn quite heavy during the early hours of the morning. But many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to low teens. Now, heading into Thursday, once again a risk of showers, but these showers could potentially become quite intense across central and southern parts, especially across the southeast. We could start to see some hail and some frequent lightning at times, so do keep an eye on the Met Office website for any warnings. Once again, some showers across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but otherwise, once again, feeling warm in any sunshine. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Staffordshire, northbound on the A38 between junctions with the A5121 Burton-upon-Trent North and the A5132, significant delays are caused by one closed lane. In Leicestershire, an incident closed all lanes on the M1 southbound exit slip at junction 19. A broken-down vehicle is blocking one of 4 lanes on the A2 westbound in Kent. Between junctions with the A227 and the A226, conditions will improve soon. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services between Milton Keynes Central and London Euston are disrupted. Hull trains are running reduced services due to industrial action. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 10:37. You're watching Britain's Newsroom.
Now, the governing body of tennis, which is the Lawn Tennis Association, has been accused of effectively breaking the law.
Yes, that's after reports that they encouraged transgender people to participate in women's tournaments. Well, we're now joined by the former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies to discuss this. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, just bring us up to date, because the LTA, I think in January, made what could have been seen as quite a positive decision to stop trans players, trans women, so biological men, from competing against women in the elite game. But tell us what's different about the amateur game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important that we do use the correct language, because they're not banning anyone. They're just stopping biological males from competing against biological females. It's really that simple. And what's very frustrating is that basically they're saying, if you're really good, we're going to give you fair and safe sport. If you're not quite so good, we're not going to give you fair and safe sport. I mean, what a ludicrous situation that we're actually in. And as you say, I mean, it's been 100 days now since the Supreme Court ruling. It made it absolutely clear that a women's event means that it's a women's event only if it has biological females in it. If it has any form of man in it, no matter how they got to call themselves, what they want to wear, then it's a mixed sex event. So, you know, they're encouraging local clubs, you know, to not actually follow the law, to not give fair sport to pathways, to recreational, to juniors. You know, these people now are just expected to have unfair sport. And how do we get the elites if we don't make sure that the way forward and the way through is fair? And this is not just tennis. You know, golf is bad too. We still have 30 sports in the UK that don't protect the female category, including things like taekwondo, would you believe, and gymnastics. Some of them still rely on this old-fashioned testosterone levels, which everyone has, you know, knows is absolute rubbish. I just don't understand why we're still here. And it's been 10 years that I've been talking about this. So when you say in January it was good to see, yes, of course it was good to see, but it's taken 9 years before any form of common sense is beginning to break through.
What is the logic, Sharon, of treating amateur tennis differently to elite tennis?
There is no logic. You know, that's the thing, Andrew. Where is the logic? Explain to me the logic of saying, if you're not very good, we're not going to treat you fairly. You know, I mean, that is credible. That's literally saying, well, if you're a good tennis player, you're due fair sport. If you're not a very good one, well, then too bad. You have to go up against the men. I mean, it's crazy. I know, I mean, I saw the Lionesses earlier in the piece you were talking about, and well done them. I mean, wasn't it exciting? And the whole country needed some good news. So that was really lovely. But it took a long time before the FA, you know, protected the women's game. And we had nearly 90 men that were identifying into the women's game. And then when they actually passed that law, most of the mainstream TV, not your good selves, thank goodness, did all the sob stories about where are these players going to play. Well, actually, there are 4,000 football clubs here in the UK, and only 10% have a women's team. There are 92 professional men's teams and 12 women's teams. And the average women's salary in this country is £10,000 to be a professional footballer. So yes, we had great stuff at the weekend, but we're still an awful long way before any form of equality. And you know, the sad truth about women's football is we have these massive peaks and troughs. So everyone is loving the women's game right now, but then it will disappear off the radar again. And we've had a big increase in women's sports coverage in things like rugby and football, but actually we've had a reduction in a lot of other sports. I mean, swimming, for example, we've got our World Swimming Championships on at the moment, and the BBC aren't even covering it.
Now, just coming back to the Lawn Tennis Association guidance, it's quite astonishing, the instructions they've given to clubs. We strongly encourage venues to start from a presumption of being inclusive for trans and non-binary players. And then it goes on to say that clubs need to think about what's more important, ensuring absolute fairness or making people feel included. Well, what's the point of sport if it is not absolutely fair?
And all sport is competitive, right? So every single game of tennis has a winner. You know, every single running race has a time or a place. So sport by nature is competitive. So yes, people may be doing it recreationally to keep fit, but there's no way that these, recreational tennis players turn up to a match or a game of golf and want to deliberately lose. The intention of playing the game is to try to win. And so it is ridiculous. As you say, they are breaking the law, and there's a lot of new things happening. I'm working very hard on getting an organisation together. We've got some good funding now. And the next thing is to start some legal action, because in the past, there's only been one side that's been threatening legal action all the time. And we've actually got to push back and threaten our own legal action. So if you are one of those women out there, please try and get hold of me, because we need your stories. And it is about time that we just said no. We need to stand up for our rights. We deserve, every level of female athlete deserves to have fair sport.
We're talking medals. The girls did good, didn't they? The Lionesses did good on Sunday. Should they all get gongs and perhaps an honorary damehood for the coach who's given us the unprecedented back-to-back victory?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? If we would do the same for the men, then why shouldn't we do it for the women?
Yeah.
The country was tuned in. I was listening to it on the radio because I was travelling. And it does bring that feel-good factor. I would just like to see women's sport invested in a little bit more. We really miss things like Grandstand and World of Sport, which Mayra might not remember, but I know, Andrew, you remember. And that gave us all a platform to have lots of different sports in the public eye. And we lose that now. Apart from, say, the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, multi-sport events, we really don't get much chance to actually get public viewing these days at all. Yeah. And although it's wonderful to see the girls in football doing so great and inspiring a lot of young girls, not everybody wants to be a footballer. They might want to be a badminton player or a hockey player or, a million other sports that are out there. So it's a shame that we can't get better viewing for women's sport in general.
Yeah. Just finally, Sharon, when the Supreme Court made that ruling on the For Women Scotland case and decided that a woman was a biological woman for the purpose of the law and the Equality Act, do you think that marked a turning point and that this kind of latest guidance from the LTA is just teething problems, or do you think there really is still a lot of the battle left to be fought?
It's really cowardice. I mean, it's virtual signalling cowardice in the fact that these organisations will just not come out and properly protect their female athletes. And I find it so depressing in 2025 that that's where we are. That this pressure, particularly Stonewall pressure, I mean, they misrepresented the law to the sporting bodies, including the Sports Council, for a very, very long time. And all that the Supreme Court did 100 days ago was clarify the existing law. They didn't break any, create any new laws. They just clarified the law as it stood. And so obviously women's spaces, changing rooms, all the things that we're battling over day in, day out, this should have been sorted out. And yet here we still are having to battle. And that should have been sorted out 100 days ago. Everything should have changed overnight.
All right, Sharon, thanks so much for joining us. That's Sharon Davies. Now, we have to read this statement from the Lawn Tennis Association, who say the policy we published in December 24 prohibits transgender women from playing in the female category in any competition between clubs or venues. From the highest level of domestic competition, we oversee all the way down to the two small village clubs playing against each other. However, it's for clubs to decide the policy for their own internal competitions. Waving the white flag.
Yep, passing the buck.
Absolutely.
Interesting point, though, about not being able to view so many major sporting events now. My dad was watching the Lions tour on the Welsh language channel.
Good Lord.
Because that's the only place that you can see. It was a major sporting event, the Lions tour.
And we won, didn't we?
Yeah, we've done amazingly, and huge victories for English players as well. So, but you can only watch it in Welsh.
Fascinating, isn't it? Now, moving on, if you are in search of that elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of those top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heatwave is now easing across parts of Greece and also parts of Turkey, but elsewhere across Europe, still some humid air creating thundery downpours. But across the west, particularly across Portugal, Spain, most of France, it's largely dry, plenty of sunshine. But across parts of Germany, northern parts of Italy, still a chance of some quite intense thundery downpours. And also still across parts of Greece and Bulgaria, we could start to see some outbreaks of rain. But otherwise, for the large majority, plenty of sunshine and warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
10.9 Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, let's see what you've been saying on Your Say. Interesting about the football. We were talking about how the England women's manager should be rewarded with some sort of gong.
She's got an honorary CBE, hasn't she?
Is that right? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Hatter, one of our viewers, says that Gareth Southgate, thoroughly deserved his knighthood. Now, our newspaper reviewers didn't agree with that. They thought that he was being rewarded for failures. But what do you think?
Well, I don't really follow football, but he did get us to the final twice. And, OK, we lost twice. But that was the first time we've been in the final since 1966. So probably. Yeah. And it's the anniversary today, apparently, of us winning the World Cup in 1966. How many years ago was that?
A lot. Nearly 60
years.
59, isn't it?
59 years, my word.
Yes, one of our viewers, I can't find the comment now, I read it in the break, said that apparently the 1966 World Cup was played in colour, on colour TVs, for those who had them. So I thought that was interesting. But
Stephen was playing pauper Labour MP, you see.
Oh, there you go. He only had a black and white.
I was very poor.
We had a black and white telly in the 80s.
Did you?
Yeah. Quite sure why.
We changed ours in the late 70s.
Oh, very good. You were an early adopter.
Yeah.
But
I can't remember when. One of my most vivid memories of colour television was ABBA winning the Eurovision Song Contest in '74. This extraordinary band in their bright blue colours and their big boots coming on stage. I was hooked and have been ever since.
What's extraordinary now is children, well, young people, have no recollection of that linear TV.
No.
They can watch whatever they want now.
YouTube is now the most watched media outlet after the BBC.
Wow. Exactly.
Doesn't that tell you everything?
Whatever you want, on demand, whenever you want it. Well, there you go. Anyway, moving on to our top story of today. Tsunami waves have reached California and Hawaii after a massive earthquake triggered warnings around the Pacific region.
The 8.8 magnitude quake is the 6th strongest ever recorded.
And the Foreign Office has advised Britons who are in any of the affected regions to follow the advice of the local authorities. Well, joining us now is Rachel Burrows, who is a tourist in Hawaii. Rachel, thank you for joining us. What's been your experience so far today?
So it's been quite a scary experience. So we were on a tour on one of the islands in Hawaii called the Big Island, up in the volcanoes, and then on the way back down towards the cruise ship, we got the alerts on our phone saying tsunami. You're in immediate danger, move to higher ground. And our tour guide, he's a local guy, and he was like, oh, it won't be anything. We get them all the time. And then we started getting more and more alerts through. And then as we started getting closer to the coast, back towards the ship, the traffic was really bad. And he was like, oh, this is really unusual. And then the sirens around the beach all started going off, so we knew it was quite serious. And then we got to the cruise ship, and they were telling us to run and to get on the boat because we needed to leave. So we managed to get onto the cruise ship, and then a lot of the people didn't. We've heard that 600 people didn't manage to get back on. So once we were back on the ship, they've taken us into deeper water because that's apparently where it's the most safe when there's a tsunami. You shouldn't even feel it. So it's been quite a scary experience.
Yes. Oh, and so far, very, very briefly, do you feel like you've had the right information at the right time?
I mean, it was all quite, the alerts were good, but coming from the UK, we don't have any training on tsunamis. So getting on a ship to go out to sea or moving to higher land was a bit of, don't know, we just did what we were told. But then when we were back on the ship, the captain reassured us that we were safe and we'd be fine. So we feel much more at ease now, but it was quite terrifying at the time.
Rachel, I'm so sorry. We are going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us from your holiday.
Rachel, very best of luck to you. Stay safe, won't you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Still to come, Donald Trump's back in America, but how has his 5-day trip to Scotland been viewed? Well, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead. Plenty of sunny spells, though there is the risk of showers, but feeling warm where you do catch any sunshine. The main risk of showers this morning is likely across northwestern parts of England and then later on into parts of Lancashire and parts of the southeast. But any showers should be mostly isolated, and if they do occur, they should be mostly light. The best of the sunshine is likely this afternoon through across central parts of Scotland, parts of Wales and southwest England. That's where we'll see the sunniest of conditions, but it's going to be feeling warm for all, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius, and even across the north will start to reach the 20s, particularly across northeastern parts of England. And then later on we'll start to see a little bit of a change, particularly across western parts of Scotland. Thicker cloud moving through here, and this at times could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain. And similar to across Northern Ireland, we could start to see some showery outbreaks by the time we reach the end of the day. But northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, it should be mostly dry. Any showers once again mostly isolated. Then as we head through into the evening and overnight, once again we'll start to see more clouds. Some showery outbreaks push their way in from the west, perhaps a few showers still lingering on across the far north of Scotland. But what you will notice is that things will start to feel a little warm and muggy by the time we reach the early hours of the morning, particularly across the south, where some of these showers could start to turn quite heavy during the early hours of the morning. But many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to low teens. Now, heading into Thursday, once again a risk of showers, but these showers could potentially become quite intense across central and southern parts, especially across the southeast. We could start to see some hail and some frequent lightning at times, so do keep an eye on the Met Office website for any warnings. Once again, some showers across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but otherwise, once again, feeling warm in any sunshine. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of July, live across the day, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam.
Well, a pathway to peace in the Middle East or just political posturing?
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
That's the Keir Starmer telling Israel to agree to a ceasefire in Gaza or Britain will recognise a Palestinian state. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fires back, accusing Starmer of appeasing jihadi terrorists. And his backbenchers, of course.
And the 5-day resident doctor strike ended this morning, but patients' relief may be short-lived as doctors threaten further industrial action if they don't get a pay rise.
And it's one of the strongest ever recorded earthquakes. It's hit eastern Russia and it's put Japan, the Philippines and parts of America on red alert for a destructive tsunami, with millions being ordered to evacuate their homes.
Eight days after his death, Ozzy Osbourne's body will be taken in a hearse through his home city of Birmingham on the way to his private funeral later this morning.
And are we entitled to know where the royals go on their holidays? Locals in the fabulous Greek island of Kefalonia claim they've seen the Prince and Princess of Wales putting their feet up via a very smart private yacht. We're asking, do they deserve a right to some privacy?
Well, we'd love to know what you think about that. I mean, we both agree, I think, on the Prince and Princess of Wales. They do deserve a bit of privacy.
She's had a terrible time. She's just got through cancer. The King is still battling cancer, and they are entitled to a holiday, and they don't want the paps on their case.
Absolutely. They've got 3 small children who want to be able to relax and enjoy a family holiday like anybody else. Yes, I think we're on their side, but...
By the way, it's a lovely island, Kefalonia.
Oh, is it?
I have been
good.
Twice.
It's pretty hot at the moment, though.
It's where Captain Corelli's mandolin was based.
Yeah.
A book which I hated, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the film's even worse, but it's a stunning island.
I've not seen the film, but I did enjoy the book. So it was okay.
Went on a bit,
I won't.
didn't it?
The book, it is quite long, it's true. But it was very, very trendy at one point, and you just basically had to read it.
Yeah, you did.
Anyway, well, let us know what you think. Go on gbnews.com/yoursay. But first of all, here's the news with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Top story today, tsunami waves have reached California and Hawaii after a massive earthquake triggered warnings around the Pacific region. The 8.8 magnitude quake is the 6th strongest ever recorded. The Russian Pacific town of Severokurilsk has reported tsunami waves of over 3 metres. Workers have now evacuated the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan, as others are seeking higher ground. The Hawaiian governor has signed off an emergency declaration and called for the evacuation of some coastal areas. But Brits have been issued tsunami warnings for 17 different countries now by the Foreign Office, as they urge them to follow the advice of local authorities.
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Sir Keir Starmer is facing pushback after announcing Britain will go ahead with the decision regarding Palestine at the upcoming UN gathering. That's unless Israel allows more aid access to Gaza, stops West Bank annexation and agrees to a ceasefire and a long-term peace process. He added Hamas must also release hostages, disarm and step away from Gaza's future government. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hit back, accusing Sir Keir of rewarding monstrous terrorism and warning that appeasement always fails. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, who met the PM on Monday, claimed they didn't discuss the move but said that Sir Keir is entitled to take a position. Speaking to GB News earlier this morning, Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel said she doesn't believe this decision will help with the aid crisis.
Britain simply hasn't been leveraging its influence. It hasn't been at the negotiating table. It's not really done anything in terms of making sure that we're stepping up to release the hostages, ensure that Hamas has no future role to play. All the British government has done is effectively issue condemnations to Israel, which I think has emboldened Hamas, and that has not helped anybody. It's certainly not helped the people in Gaza. It's not helped aid get into Gaza.
Resident doctors in England ended their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute with the government. The BMA is demanding a 29% rise to reverse pay erosion since 2008. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked NHS staff for minimising disruption, but he's ruled out reopening pay talks. Over the last few days, thousands of appointments were affected, despite efforts to keep planned care running. Now, an officer with the police watchdog revealed the full name of a former officer who was under investigation for grooming gang abuse. GB News can reveal. The mistake led to the abuse case being dropped, with the man released without charge. Elizabeth, not her real name, says she was held and abused in a flat for 10 weeks in 2004. She came forward in March, naming one of her abusers as PC, only realising this year it's likely to have referred to his job as a police constable. Her report followed the arrests of 2 other ex-offenders over similar allegations.
I was expected to know it, even though I weren't in with the nickname. They just turned it round on me to make it look like I'm accountable. South Yorkshire Police shouldn't be investigating themselves for a number of reasons. It was that police force that failed us. It was those police officers that have been accused, that have been raping children.
The police watchdog, the IOPC, has said it is confident that the information disclosed has neither affected the key decisions made in the criminal investigation, nor will it affect any future decisions. Now fans get to say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham. The hearse will pass the Black Sabbath bench at 1 o'clock today, where thousands have paid tribute to the 76-year-old rock legend. The Osbourne family has covered the costs for the event, with his wife Sharon and children Kelly and Jack following behind before going on to their private funeral later on today. And history has been made at the Royal Observatory, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created in 1675 to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Professor Doherty is a leading space physicist and joins a line of prestigious scientists dating back to John Flamsteed. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now, but first let's check in with the markets.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.336 and €1.156. The price of gold is £2,491.74 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,118 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and me, Miriam Cates, standing in for Bev Turner.
Well, last night, GB News' Bev Turner was travelling from Scotland back to the US on Air Force One with, guess who? President Trump.
And on the flight, the President held a media huddle and was asked about migrant hotels in the UK. Take a listen.
They're putting people in luxury hotels, and other people that are working their asses off are living, from hand to mouth. They're not living the same way. I mean, I looked at some of the hotels they're using, and they've done it in our country also. They put them in like the best hotels anywhere in the world because they could get rooms there, thousands of dollars a night, and other people are living out on the streets, including our veterans. They can't get a room. Our veterans are living on the streets. There are pictures of our veterans saying right by the door where they're walking in to live, and the veterans are sitting out on the sidewalk in front of a fancy hotel, and the illegals are coming into that hotel and staying there for a week. That's no good.
You also had quite a lot to say about our great, huge, untapped resources of North Sea oil. Take a listen.
They have the greatest, among the greatest reserves. It's tremendous, and they're not using it. Instead, they're putting up these stupid windmills. It's so crazy. UK could reduce their energy costs by 70% if they would use the North Sea oil. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, joining us now is US journalist Chapman Bell. Chapman, welcome to the studio. It's been an extraordinary few days, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a whirlwind trip. A lot of different topics covered, and from presidential business to personal commercial business for the president, and as well as a bit of relaxation, but also, EU tariffs and meeting with Keir Starmer. He's covered a lot, but there's a lot going on as well.
How does it play back in the United States to see the president effortlessly lining his pocket effectively by promoting his 2 golf courses while he's there on Air Force One at public expense doing official business?
Well, he already gets flack in the United States, particularly from people away from his base.
Yeah.
Even when he just goes to Florida to play golf at Air Force One, and going to Scotland is a much more expensive journey, though I guess the president's thinking was, if I make it a working visit, it maybe eases the cost potentially, maybe some of the criticism, though he's always going to receive criticism, though I don't know how much the president really minds the criticism.
And it is an extraordinary spectacle to see such a powerful world leader just commenting on the domestic affairs of a country that he's visiting for a holiday, setting shockwaves around the world. I mean, we've kind of got used to Donald Trump talking about some of these issues, but how does it play in the US?
Well, and I think the president is, at home, essentially, on his golf courses in Scotland, and he's comfortable there, and it gives him a safe place to discuss and know that he can disappear from the cameras. He can be as public as he wants to be or as private as he wants to be when at these golf courses. So, but, you know, there's always going to be criticism of how he does it, and it's Trump. We had 4 years of him before, and, you know, as one article said, you know, he's not just, the lines aren't blurring, he's rewriting them, and he holds the pen to it. That's one article I read.
He seems much more accomplished this time because he did it before, 4 years. He learnt the mistakes, what he got wrong. And I thought his 88 minutes with Starmer, it was a masterclass. He dominated it from beginning to end in the same way he dominated Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, the day before. He dominated. She hardly got a word in edgeways.
Well, he had a clear agenda, and he had said in particular with von der Leyen that he said there was a 50-50 chance, which the president loves to put out numbers like that.
The great deal maker.
Exactly. But ultimately, the cards were kind of on the table, and it was deal or no deal. And I think the EU was going to have to accept that deal because negotiations weren't going to continue, and then they were going to have a higher tariff rate. And then you get into a trade war, which I don't think anybody wants. So I think it was kind of, this is the deal, take it. And that's, you know, I guess in a way, this whole idea of ultimatums is something maybe Sir Keir Starmer has picked up by this recent ultimatum for Israel and, you know, recognizing a Palestinian state, that if things aren't done to ease the suffering in Gaza, come September, there will be, you know, the UK supporting a Palestinian state.
I don't think the president cares what Starmer thinks on Israel and Gaza, actually.
Oh no, what I'm saying is I think maybe the whole idea of putting an ultimatum down may have been picked up by this.
I think Starmer probably then hasn't fully understood how to engineer the incentives in the situation. Because Donald Trump obviously does business deals. It comes naturally to him to incentivise each side, but perhaps you could argue that the incentives have been turned the wrong way in this. But moving on to a different issue, one of the questions that Bev Turner asked Trump during this week was about free speech. It is an issue that both Trump and Vance have expressed strong opinions on, about free speech in Britain and Europe more widely. But how much do you think Trump does care about free speech, and how much is this linked to not wanting American tech companies to be regulated, tech companies that, of course, are very, very profitable?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult subject to tackle because free speech, even in America, whereas you have freedom of speech, it's in, you know, the Bill of Rights, it's in the Constitution, there are limitations to it, and, you know, that while you can say probably more inflammatory things in America, you know, there's that whole thing everyone learns in school when you're younger in civics class, that it's kind of a generalization, but you cannot walk into a crowded cinema and shout bomb.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do certain things that could put people in danger and harm. But that said, I think they've been very critical and very vocal of free speech here, but as I've said in the past, there are people on both sides of the political spectrum in America who are concerned about freedom of speech. You know, you've got people more on the left who think free speech is crumbling, whereas you have people on the right. And what I think a lot of it comes down to is what part of that free speech do you feel is degrading or is no longer free?
Yeah.
And this has become just another polarization of politics, I think, the whole concept of free speech.
Because we shouldn't forget he's back in a few weeks' time for the state visit. All the pomp and panoply of the British state, the King, the royal family, the Prince and Princess of Wales, they'll all be there. But of course, they've conveniently timed the visit for when Parliament's in recess, so no opportunity for him to address both houses of Parliament, which could have led to protests.
That's right, and I think also, you know, this trip to Scotland was almost like a dress rehearsal in a way. But what also is very unprecedented, other than the fact he's having a second state visit, is the fact that it's a lot of FaceTime for the British government with the President of the United States at a very crucial time when there's a lot happening in the world. And so it's a very unique and, you know, hopefully beneficial time for the United Kingdom to have a lot of FaceTime with the United States, with the government, to try to work together on some of these big issues that are currently going on, most notably Gaza currently. And, you know, the president and Keir Starmer both It's saying, I mean, to hear President Trump say there is starvation there, going against Netanyahu, and to say you can't fake this, you know, something he often talks about, fake news, and that things need to be done, particularly for these children who are so hungry. That shows kind of a focal point for the president. And even on Air Force One, when asked about Keir Starmer saying he would recognize a Palestinian state, while he said, we're not in that camp, we don't want to reward Hamas, he then twisted his focus, though, back to food distribution centers. And he even said, when he was opening his new golf course, you know, he loves golf, but there are more important things than golf, and he wants to get back to focusing on, you know, ending this starvation. And he said, you know, I'll be going back to Washington and continuing to put out fires. So it looks like, you know, he has said that he wants to be the president of peace. And it looks like, at least this point, he's trying to put more diplomatic efforts into focusing on things that can be potentially solved and, you know, easing hunger for people in Gaza, though not wanting to, as he says, reward terrorists, reward Hamas in the process.
Excuse me.
UK.
You okay? Yeah, you can go.
Thank you, Chatham Bell. Thank you for joining us.
Always good to talk to you. Now it's the final week to see how you could become £54,320 rich in our biggest cash giveaway. Lines close on Friday, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the details you need.
There's only 2 days left to see how you could be our biggest cash winner to date. £54,321 in tax-free cash is up for grabs in our summer Great British giveaway. Cash to spend on anything you like. All of that cash could send you on a holiday, boost your savings, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. You have to hurry, as lines close at 4 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still coming up, the Prince and Princess of Wales have reportedly been spotted on holiday on a Greek island. Well, should they let the British public know their holiday plans or instead keep it private? That's what we're asking. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes past 11. This is Britain's Newsroom. We are live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And they're back in the studio, Statler and Waldorf, the dream team, broadcaster
so
Mike Parry
unfair.
and former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Masterclass, wasn't it, Trump, the other day?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, look, every subject he hit on, you know, immigration, wind power, the economy, was common sense. He just gave us a common sense breakdown. He actually said to Keir Starmer, politics is not difficult, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he says, all you've got to do is this, stop immigrants coming into your country, cut taxes, get rid of wind power. The wind power one I love because he called the North Sea a treasure chest, OK? Yeah. And he made it so simple. He said there's a hole this big out of which oil and gas comes, and that could cut your bills, your power bills in this country by 70%. He even gave us a lecture that the power bills in this country are the most expensive in the world, so why don't you do something about it? You must remember, Mr. Pound, the days when we used to take oil and gas out of the North Sea, and it's the only thing that kept us going in the 60s and the 70s. I wasn't Tony Benn, the Energy Secretary, who was all for it, a left-wing politician who realised it was good.
Hang on a second. One of the reasons why it was so significant in the 70s was, if you remember, the thing called OPEC, Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries, who actually held this country to ransom because we didn't have energy security. The problem with North Sea gas and oil is it's short-term. It's not going to last forever.
Oh, rubbish.
Mike,
nonsense.
I'm sorry, you're not telling me there's a bottomless pit?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Because as technology goes on, you can find more and more deposits of gas and oil all around the world, OK? If the Norwegians are drawing oil and gas out of the North Sea on their side of the border and selling it to us at a greater price, why aren't we drilling oil and gas out of the North Sea?
Norwegians are using something called the Sovereign Wealth Fund to actually invest in nuclear and alternative... Look,
exactly.
The real problem with this country, with politics, is short-termism. We always think about today, we don't think about tomorrow. We have to think what happens when the oil and the gas run out, which is why wind, air and tidal power is so damned important.
Stephen, I'm sorry to contradict you, but
no,
Keir Starmer...
You love contradicting.
Keir Starmer sitting there like a naughty boy in front of the headmaster when the President made his announcement about wind power being no good. Keir Starmer actually said, direct quote, we will need oil and gas for many years to come. He said that.
Not forever.
He said that,
But currently the UK imports 50% of our gas.
It's ridiculous.
And a large amount of that comes from the US. So if we were to produce our own fossil fuels...
Well, that's liquefied petroleum.
Exactly. A large amount of fossil fuels that we import, I should say, come from the US.
Because don't forget, America is self-sufficient in energy now.
It's an exporter. It exports energy because of fracking. So America fracks its gas, puts it into containers, liquefies it, sends it over here at great cost. Massive plumes of smoke come out of the tankers that bring it here, but somehow we think it's cleaner. Great for the environment.
Do you know, and you know Texas quite well, all along the coast of Texas, on the Gulf of, quote, Mexico/America, there's a thing called the United States Naval Oil Repository, all the way from Corpus Christi. They had a month's supply of oil stored down there for emergency. They've sold a lot. Now, they don't need it because of hydraulic fracturing.
They don't.
Now, Mike, you and I agree on 3 things a year, and I don't know what the other 2 are, but the one is that we both agree that hydraulic fracturing makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. But also...
Can we just move on? I think we've agreed on something.
No, exactly. Also, in the last 7 days, Ed Miliband has announced again charges are going up considerably because he can't attract people to these new wind farms farms he wants at sea.
Sorry.
So he's having to offer nearly double the standard price for companies to come in.
Energy prices are going down. Energy prices are going down.
Not Ed Miliband, they're not going down.
But mine has. I don't know about yours.
No, well, they're certainly not. Ed Miliband's taxes on power in this country makes it the most expensive in the world. So it's not just your house and mine, Stephen, that we're paying through the nose to heat. What about industry in this country? How can industry possibly compete when the cost of power is enormous? The highest in the developed
sense for us
world.
to be building at the moment wind turbines come from Sweden and South Korea.
And
why
China.
don't we build our own? Look at Sheffield, the manufacturing capital of the universe. Why isn't Sheffield Forge Masters making
China? Ed Miliband's a very dangerous
knows more about.
man.
She's forgotten more about this than I've ever known.
60% of the food in this country comes from Lincolnshire. But if you go to Lincolnshire now, you'll find huge areas of Lincolnshire being covered in what's called solar farms. Oh, on a day like today, we must be getting loads of power.
And the farmers are biting your arm off to put the solar farm panels on their farm.
That's because your government's screwing the farmers.
Oh, of course they're not.
Yeah, and where are the solar panels coming from?
China.
They're coming from China. And why do people in China often have to work under duress? Because of the Chinese political system. You should be ashamed of yourself supporting that.
I have to say, some of the Uyghurs who are, as we know, are actually operating as slave labourers, it is outrageous. But we do not buy any solar panels now from China. We've cancelled the orders, thank God.
Because China have outsourced the production of the panels, so we're buying them from the people that China have asked to make them for them. It's still Chinese money.
We produce only about 8% of our own solar panels.
At the moment, we do, which is 8% up on what it was 2 years ago.
To decorate the entire countryside with them.
Why can't we have a system? Why can't we have a system where we do build windmills, as the President calls them, and they will be integrated into our power production system, but ideologically, Ed Miliband says, no, we've got to stop oil, stop gas, immediately. We're closing down all our refineries because there's no work, people are going out of work. Why can't we do it as a gradual introduction rather than an ideological bang your head against the table move?
I seem to remember David Cameron referring to wind turbines as bird blenders, which I thought was quite a dramatic expression. But look, we do have what Ed Miliband's talking about is an energy mix. What we should have is all these different sources of energy, because we cannot rely on Russia or OPEC to hold us to ransom time and time again. We've got to have independent energy sources.
Isn't this the problem that Trump was putting his finger on, or nearly, was that we do have reserves in this country, in the North Sea, but two problems. First of all, we're not extracting it. But secondly, even if we did, that gas would be sold on the world market. It wouldn't actually reduce domestic prices. I think Trump is wrong about that. Of course, you could rejig the whole system. You could. But at the moment, it would not. It would increase our security, but it would not reduce the price. Well,
I believe it would. It would certainly increase our security, but it would mean prices go lower, because you say it would go onto the world market. We've got so much in the North Sea that if we put it onto the world market, it would depress prices because it increased supply. So everybody wins, everybody benefits.
That cuts inflation.
Of course it cuts inflation, because at the moment it's going up again. 4% on food this week alone. And food is produced by power. And power is getting more and more expensive in this country, and it is an outrage.
Food is produced by sun and water.
And power to process it and manufacture it.
Oh, not on my allotment.
Yeah. Well, but you don't run a combine harvester up and down the fields of Norfolk, do you? No.
You haven't seen the size of my allotment.
How big is your allotment, Stephen Pound?
It's 10 poles.
10 poles?
Yeah.
Is that a specific analogue measurement for...
Nothing...
I'm afraid I am not... I'm not very knowledgeable about
What do you grow?
At the moment, I've got beetroot, runner beans, new potatoes, courgettes, marrows, chilies...
should open a grocery shop, shouldn't you? And then you'd have something to do during the day.
I have to say, my cucumbers would make your eyes water.
I'm sure they would. Nothing in Ed Miliband's energy policy works. Nothing works at all. I don't know why we allow him to get on with it. Electric cars are not working because people are frightened that they won't go very far before they run out. And there's not enough charging points. And they're too expensive. And companies are being blackmailed to produce them, even though nobody wants to buy them.
I must admit, I wonder why we're offering a subsidy for electric cars. I'm not entirely sure about that, because we don't make them here, do we? Wasn't it you, Andrew, said that apparently half the bridges in the United Kingdom are going to be restructured because the electric cars are so heavy?
They are.
Well, they're going to start...
Multi-storey car parks. Multi-storey car parks, I know for one particular case in Nottingham, having to be checked on a monthly basis because of the weight of electric cars. and they may not be able to go over a certain number of...
Do you know, Mike, I have to say, I was a lot happier earlier on when we were talking about the great good news about the England women's football.
Indeed.
Can we have some good news? Apart from collapsing car parks.
Well, actually, I can tell you a bit of good news. I've got a great story about the tsunami, OK?
Is it a short one?
It is a short one, honestly.
It goes out, but then it comes back in twice as big.
Yeah, but, you know, in 2005, when it happened in Sri Lanka, I was working in radio then, and we were searching around for a great story about it. Came across this magnificent story of a chap who came back from holiday in Sri Lanka, right, with his little 12-year-old girl. His little 12-year-old girl's last lesson before they went on holiday was geography and tidal flows. She got up one morning to go to the beach, came back and said, "Daddy, there's going to be a tsunami." No. And her father said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I've just been down to the beach, Daddy, there's no sea." He said, "What are you talking about?" Anyway, she was absolutely right. Wow. What happens in a tsunami is the ocean is sucked out for 2 or 3 miles by the quake that's happened on the sea floor and then comes back. This little girl spotted it. Her father checked it out. They went round knocking on doors and saved hundreds of people's lives.
Well, I remember my son misheard it. He thought it was Tsunami, and he said, "I can understand why people are so terrified, all the Newcastle supporters coming down."
Bad taste.
From tidal waves to Trump, to turbines, to turnips. I think we've had it all this half hour. So
got a turnip over there.
Talking about its allotment. Here's your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Very good morning. The latest headlines shortly after 11:30. Tsunami waves have reached California and Hawaii after a massive earthquake triggered warnings around the Pacific region. The 8.8 magnitude quake is the 6th strongest ever recorded. The backlash is growing over the Prime Minister's plan to formally recognise the state of Palestine in September at the UN meeting in New York, with Israel's Prime Minister accusing the PM of monstrous terrorism. Resident doctors in England end their 5-day strike this morning in the long-running pay dispute. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked NHS staff for minimising disruption, but ruled out reopening pay talks. And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham as they pay their tributes to the rock legend. And history has been made with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back, and up at noon we have Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily, who've joined us in the studio now.
Do indeed.
What's coming up?
Well, we're going to be live in Birmingham about midway through the show because it's Ozzy Osbourne's funeral. So we're going to see a lot of famous faces. We're going to see a bit of a procession through Birmingham, and it will be interesting to see just who turns out. We're expecting Elton John, but who else? We'll have to wait and see.
And I don't know if you saw, but 12 veterans were evicted. They had absolutely no idea this was coming. Evicted from accommodation, PTSD, very complex needs, all served in multiple tours. They were evicted. They spoke to GB News last night. We're trying to follow up today because they say that they were not told anything by Bolton Council in advance. They've not been helped at all with any extra accommodation. There have been concerns that perhaps this accommodation might be being used for different reasons in the future. So we're going to speak to the councillor who's been trying to fight their case on the ground and see if we can get some answers.
Yeah, it does seem
for migrants.
Well, we don't know, but there are potential rumours about that. But we're going to try and find out what's going on because they have just been told absolutely nothing. And these are people who fought for our country in dangerous times, and they feel like they've been, you know, given a rough deal.
Yeah, and of course it is the government's official policy to use military sites for asylum seekers. Obviously, in this case, it could be something else. We are, of course, talking to those people involved in the decision. But it's a very curious case, and I'm sure the sad thing here is it's not going to be an isolated case.
No.
There are
Absolutely.
going to be more and more of these.
Yeah, 12 veterans, just eviction notice. No idea why. No idea what's happening to their accommodation. No replacement accommodation offered up. So we'll be following up on that on the show as well. And, of course, we're going to be debating Keir Starmer's rather confusing stance on Palestine. What's all that about?
Keeping his Labour MPs happy. That's what that's about.
On the one hand, I think well over 140 countries have already recognised Palestine as a state, but it is a bit different when it's members of the Security Council, France and now Britain.
Yeah, and of course, given that France and Britain were the ones who sort of carved those lines in the Middle East in the first place, it does seem curious. The other half of it is, of course, there are conditions on this statehood guarantee on Israel, but no conditions on Hamas.
No, that's right.
Raises a few eyebrows.
It's almost like a punishment list for Israel, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely it is. It's a punishment. It's a threat to Israel. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And how on earth can you justify that? Also, what criteria does Palestine fulfil as a state?
Yeah, and who's going to draw the borders and who's going to run it?
Well, the last election was held in the West Bank, I think we're in 2006. So it's no longer, you can no longer argue it's democratic. They won't hold elections because they fear Hamas will win. So who's going to run this state? It's,
Again, Keir Starmer floundering. What does he actually believe? You know?
Not a lot.
Well, all that and lots more to come at midday, but still ahead on Britain's Newsroom.
Black Sabbath fans are lining the streets of Birmingham to pay tributes to the fabulous Ozzy Osbourne. It's his coffin we've driven along Broad Street this afternoon. We'll be there for that. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. We can't rule out the odd shower, but where you do see any sunshine, it is going to be feeling warm. And that's all thanks to high pressure building towards the southwest. But draw your eyes to the northwest of the country, a frontal system lingering on here. So that's where we'll see the bulk of the cloud this afternoon, possibly even some light outbreaks of rain, particularly across western parts of Scotland and eventually clearing Northern Ireland. Now the odd shower, particularly across parts of the southeast, but otherwise a dry afternoon for many. Plenty of sunny spells and a mix of cloud too. Feeling warm, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius across the south, but even across northern areas, many towns and cities reaching the low 20s. Now, as we progress further into the evening, there's still going to be a fair amount of clouds, some light outbreaks of rain, this time pushing into central parts of Scotland, though northeastern parts of Scotland should remain mostly dry. Any rain clearing away from Northern Ireland, so it should be quite a pleasant end to the day, and fairly similar once again across the rest of England and Wales. Still a chance of the odd isolated shower across the southeast, but many should see a dry end to the day. And it remains fairly similar through the course of the evening. Still some light outbreaks of rain affecting northeastern parts of Scotland. Then we do just need to keep an eye on this system pushing into Wales and central parts of England as we head towards dawn. A chance we could start to see some heavy showers through the course of the morning. But for many, once again, remaining mostly dry. And it's going to be particularly mild as well. Once again, across the southeast, many lows not dropping much past 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Now, it's really across central areas and parts of the south that is a bit of a watch point tomorrow. Some quite heavy, possibly thundery showers pushing into central and southern parts. So this could bring some hail and also some frequent lightning. So do take care if you're out and about. Also the odd shower across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, plenty of sunshine and once again, feeling warm.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, is it a royally deserved rest?
Well, there have been reports this morning from a retired civil servant and royal fan who swears blind that she's spotted the Prince and Princess of Wales and their family on a £40 million super yacht while holidaying on the Greek island of Kefalonia earlier this month. So, is this an invasion of their privacy, or is it fair enough for us, the public, to know where the royal family choose to take their holidays? Well,
let's talk to the royal commentator, Jack Stooks. Jack, you're a big fan of this family. They've had a pretty tough year, haven't they? Let's be honest, with the Princess of Wales struggles with cancer. Do you think most people think, let them have a good holiday, and who cares where they are?
Yeah, good morning. I'll say good morning to you both. It's been a difficult last actually few years for all the family, and if they're paying to go on a holiday, I don't think it's up to any of us to know where they are. If they've been loaned a yacht or whatever it might be, if they're there with the princess's family or not, I don't think it's relevant for all of us to know. It's I've read the article, and it's a retired civil servant saying that she thinks she saw them, and then you've got other stories coming out saying were they here, were they there? But it's a little bit of a I saw the Loch Ness monster last week. So it is a bit of a ridiculous story, but the crux of it are that I do think that they should be allowed to have private holiday time like we all do. If they're on a if they aren't actually there for a specific purpose, then normally the Greek islands will be told the Prince and Princess of Wales are coming, and then there's going to be certain events and certain charities that they'll be visiting. And in those instances, yes, of course, we completely entitled to find out what's going on and where they are, because we are all supposedly paying for that service from the royal family. But in their private time, it's just like as though they're at home. It's not up to us to sort of have to know their every move.
If that's a freebie from a wealthy, you'd have to be an incredibly wealthy person to own a yacht of that size. It's said to be worth £40 million. If it's a freebie, again, Jack, do we not need to know who our royals are accepting largesse and generous holidays from? Again, with that kind of a situation, if it is a friend that's offering you a trip somewhere, so for instance, if you were offered by a friend of yours, please come and join us in New York for a weekend, and they've paid for all expenses paid, come out to New York and come have a holiday with us. Well, why is that a problem? I don't think it should be a problem. But if of course they're gaining a lot of money out of this, or if charities are sort of getting funded like we have seen in the past with various problems with the charities, then yes, of course, that needs to be looked into. But I don't think that this is one of those occasions. I think it's a friend has gone, if they are even there, a friend might have gone, come out, just have some time out of the spotlight and come and be somewhere on your own. And I think that's a really good, wise move for William, thinking of his family and what's gone on with the princess over the last few years.
Jack, there have been so many controversies in the past surrounding the British press and their attitude to the privacy or lack of that the royal family deserve on holiday. Do you think the British press have learned their lesson? Do you think there'll be less attempt this time to try and snap those exclusive photos?
I do think so, because this story has been out, and it's been out in different publications throughout the world, and I think that the British press have sort of kept fairly quiet about it, because there was no substantial evidence of what was even going on. So it didn't make sense for them to go and try and pry and send people out to try and take exclusive shots. We remember the photos that were taken of William and Catherine when they were having a private time out on a private estate, and those photos came out and they went all over the world, and the prince rightly sued and gained money out of that. But I'm sure that money went to a charity, but it was, I think, them standing up and saying, we need our private time and allow us our private time. We give you enough when we can. We give you photos of our children at every birthday. We give you photos of the family at Christmas. We do as much as we can. So give us our time as well. And I think that's quite fair.
Well, Jack Stooks, thank you very much for your reporting there. Jack Stooks, royal commentator. Well, moving on, if you're in search of some holiday sun, just like the Waleses...
Maybe you could go to a Greek island.
Maybe you could.
£40 million yacht.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, here's the forecast if that's where you're headed.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat wave is now easing across parts of Greece and also parts of Turkey, but elsewhere across Europe, still some humid air creating thundery downpours. But across the west, particularly across Portugal, Spain, most of France, it's largely dry, plenty of sunshine. But across parts of Germany, northern parts of Italy, still a chance of some quite intense thundery downpours. And also still across parts of Greece and Bulgaria, we could start to see some outbreaks of rain. But otherwise, for the large majority, plenty of sunshine and warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
The Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, is being honoured with a citywide procession through Birmingham today, giving fans the chance to say goodbye as the Black Sabbath legend is celebrated in the place where it all began. Well, let's cross over live to Birmingham, where GB News reporter Steve Bennett fills us in.
Good afternoon to you both. Good afternoon, everyone. Incredible scenes here in Birmingham. So much love for one of their favourite sons, Ozzy Osbourne. Let me just step out a shot so you can see. As far as the eye can see down Broad Street here, it is lined with adoring fans come to pay their last respects to Ozzy Osbourne. We expect his procession to pass through at 1 o'clock, flanked by his loved ones, his friends and family, and it'll be a really, really nice opportunity for the locals here in Birmingham to pay their respects to one of their favourite sons. Like I said, just recently he had his back to the beginning final concert down at Villa Park, just a few miles down the road from here, his beloved football club, and all the proceeds of that concert went directly to charity. So $200 million of that went to charity. He didn't keep a single penny. He wanted to help others just like him who had Parkinson's and other diseases. Incredible gesture from Ozzy Osbourne, and everybody that I've been speaking to here on Broad Street have nothing but love for the man. They're saying how proud they are of him, how he was the godfather of heavy metal, how he put metal on the map, he created the genre, and how he put Birmingham on the map. So much affection for Ozzy Osbourne and for his family as well. Many people are saying that they don't just like Ozzy, they like Sharon, the kids, and everyone. So we expect the procession to be down this road at about 1 o'clock, so make sure you join us for that.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that report. Well, let's bring in a very special final guest to end the show, Bev Turner, who has landed back in the UK. Bev, what an extraordinary few days you've had, joining us live on the phone now.
Hi, Miriam. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. I've just landed at Heathrow now. I'm waiting for my bag, so hopefully it's quiet in the background. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody really at GBNews who's been so supportive this week, and the amazing response that we've had online and actually globally, asking the right questions of the Prime Minister and Donald Trump, being allowed to put his side of those particularly powerful issues out, seems to have really kind of made waves globally. In fact, I was watching the discussions on international channels about that embarrassing encounter for Keir Starmer in Turnberry. So yeah, I think overall an exhausting but very successful week.
Bev, the difference between Trump and our own Prime Minister, and indeed previous British Prime Ministers, he will take all the questions and he will answer them directly.
Oh, hello, Andrew. I wasn't quite sure if it was you there.
Yeah, still
nice
there.
to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I can't see you guys, obviously. I'm just on a phone here. Oh, yeah, the difference is phenomenal. Like, the president just talks and talks and talks, completely disarmed. I had another half an hour conversation with him on Air Force One last night, driving over. There was, there's 13 media representatives on the plane, and we managed to kind of have a chat a little bit. But he's so unguarded, and I think that's what the complete difference is. That's what I came away thinking. I was talking to one of the Downing Street representatives before we had after we had the conversation with the Prime Minister, and he said, he's very good at keeping a poker face. And I tried to explain to him, but that is why he's not connecting with the public, because we don't really know what he's thinking. We need him to be human. I don't know if they've still posted any clips from that interview, from that press conference online. I don't know whether you've been able to see, Andrew, but...
Well, they certainly hadn't at 6 o'clock last night, Bev, because I was checking the whole time.
Amazing. And I did ask Donald Trump about that on Air Force One last night, about whether he had any words of support for Keir Starmer after that press conference. But actually, he said, I think he did fine. I didn't notice there was a problem for him. He said, I thought it was okay. Now, of course, he is in that situation, and Donald Trump gets out of those press conferences and he hits the ground running and he moves on to the next topic. He's actually not then watching what the public response has been to the Prime Minister in this country. He's just concerned about himself. America first always. What does he need to do? And again, I think we all agree we'd quite like a leader who's a little bit more putting Britain first. I mean, Keir Starmer came out at that press conference the next day, announced he's going to recognise a Palestinian state in a matter of weeks.
Indeed. Bev, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much. You absolutely deserve a rest. What a few days.
And congratulations, Bev. We're all very proud of you. Well done.
Absolutely. That's it from Britain's Newsroom.
We'll be back tomorrow, but we can now go to what are we going
Tom and Emily.
Tom and Emily, who's going to be.
Forgot our names right. Yeah, busy show today. Of course, we'll be live at Ozzy Osbourne's funeral, but so much more. Knife crime up in London.
Indeed, we'll be with you till 3 o'clock. So stick with us after the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead. Plenty of sunny spells, though there is the risk of showers, but feeling warm where you do catch any sunshine. The main risk of showers this morning is likely across northwestern parts of England and then later on into parts of Lancashire and parts of the southeast. But any showers should be mostly isolated, and if they do occur, they should be mostly light. The best of the sunshine is likely this afternoon through across central parts of Scotland, parts of Wales and southwest England. That's where we'll see the sunniest of conditions, but it's going to be feeling warm for all. Highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius, and even across the north will start to reach the 20s, particularly across northeastern parts of England. And then later on we'll start to see a little bit of a change, particularly across western parts of Scotland. Thicker cloud moving through here, and this at times could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain. And similar to across Northern Ireland, we could start to see some showery outbreaks by the time we reach the end of the day. But northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, it should be mostly dry. Any showers once again mostly isolated. Then as we head through into the evening and overnight, once again we'll start to see more clouds. Some showery outbreaks push their way in from the west, perhaps a few showers still lingering on across the far north of Scotland. But what you will notice is that things will start to feel a little warm and muggy by the time we reach the early hours of the morning, particularly across the south, where some of these showers could start to turn quite heavy during the early hours of the morning. But many towns and cities not really dropping much past the mid to low teens. Now, heading into Thursday, once again, a risk of showers. These showers could potentially become quite intense across central and southern parts, especially across the southeast. We could start to see some hail and some frequent lightning at times, so do keep an eye on the Met Office website for any warnings. Once again, some showers across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but otherwise, once again, feeling warm in any sunshine. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Wednesday, the 30th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, a pathway to peace in the Middle East or a dangerous gamble?
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Well, Keir Starmer warns Israel, agree to a Gaza ceasefire or Britain will recognise a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has fired back, accusing Keir Starmer of appeasing terrorists. Is this bold diplomacy or reckless brinkmanship?
Elsewhere, a massive earthquake in eastern Russia triggers tsunami fears across the Pacific Ocean. Hawaii's evacuation is now lifted, but dangerous tides remain. We'll have the very latest warnings and what's next.
And yes, knife crime. It's soared 58% in just 3 years, with 1 in 15 stabbings happening on just 20 streets near Oxford Circus in London. Critics say the capital is in the grip of a crime epidemic. We ask, is Sadiq Khan failing to keep London safe?
Yes, 8 days after his death, and Ozzy Osbourne's body will be taken in a hearse through his home city of Birmingham on the way to a private funeral later today.
Birmingham will say goodbye to one of its favourite sons today as the funeral procession of Ozzy Osbourne passes down Broad Street here this afternoon.
And should the royals let us know where they're going on holiday? Locals in the beautiful Greek island of Kefalonia claim they've seen the Prince and Princess of Wales enjoying a little downtime, but we haven't been told anything. Yeah, so the question really is Keir Starmer rewarding terrorism, rewarding Hamas by suddenly recognising Palestine as a state? Is this simply about politics for him? Is this just about appeasing his backbenchers? What is it? More than 200 of his backbenchers demanding this? And then why are all the conditions on Israel, the democratic state here, involved in this conflict? No conditions on Hamas, no get rid of that terrorist infrastructure, no release the hostages first. No, we're going to recognise a Palestinian state.
Although, of course, the Prime Minister has been under pressure from his backbenchers, from various electoral threats, the new Jeremy Corbyn party, and privately, reportedly, the Foreign Secretary had been very in favour of this too. There is an argument that if it's not done now, then when? The idea that a two-state solution is viable at all has been slipping away over the course of the last year or two. While the majority of Britain, I think, sits squarely behind the idea of a two-state solution, there is a question mark over how viable that is. So you can sort of see the logic of jumping in now.
I don't think so. You have to reach that point first, don't you? You have to have a peace process in place first. You have to have an agreement of a ceasefire. I mean, what criteria does Palestine currently fulfil in terms of being a state? I mean, it doesn't... you can argue about whether it has a defined territory. You can argue whether it has a functioning government. It certainly doesn't. It doesn't have elections in the way we do and in the way most states would. There's so many different factors that the UN and the international law say you need to have.
In some ways, what the United Kingdom is doing here is showing our impotence in the region. I mean, what other tools do we have to influence things in the Middle East? We no longer control the territory. We no longer have a big army. We don't provide military aid to Israel in the way the United States does. They listen to the United States. I mean, in what way can actually the UK be a diplomatic player in the Middle East in an age when we don't have assets there, when we're not the country that drew those lines in the first place anymore?
Yeah, and also, frankly, do you think this should be the priority currently? Is this what you're thinking about at home around the dining room table or wherever you are in the kitchen? Or do you think that perhaps Keir Starmer should be focusing on more domestic issues? Let us know. gbnews.com/your say. But let's get to the headlines with Sophia Hill.
Emily, thank you. A very good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. Let's bring you up to date with all the latest headlines. Top story today, the tsunami waves have reached California and Hawaii after a massive earthquake triggered warnings around the Pacific region. The 8.8 magnitude quake is the 6th strongest ever recorded. The Russian Pacific town of Severokurilsk has reported tsunami waves of over 3 metres. Workers have now evacuated the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan, as others are seeking higher ground. The Hawaiian governor has signed an emergency declaration and called for the evacuation of some coastal areas. Brits have been issued tsunami warnings for 17 different countries by the Foreign Office, urging them to follow the advice of local authorities.
I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
Sir Keir Starmer is under fire after announcing Britain will go ahead with the decision regarding Palestine at the upcoming UN gathering. That's unless Israel allows more aid access to Gaza, stops West Bank annexation and agrees to a ceasefire and a long-term peace process. He added that Hamas must also release hostages, disarm and step away from Gaza's future government. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hit back, accusing Sir Keir of rewarding monstrous terrorism and warning that appeasement always fails. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, who met the PM on Monday, claimed they didn't discuss the move, but said Sir Keir is entitled to take a position. Speaking to GB News earlier on, Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel said she doesn't believe this decision will help with the aid crisis.
Britain simply hasn't been leveraging its influence. It hasn't been at the negotiating table. It's not really done anything in terms of making sure that we're stepping up to release the hostages, ensure that Hamas has no future role to play. All the British government has done is effectively issue condemnations to Israel, which I think has emboldened Hamas, and that has not helped anybody. It's certainly not helped the people in Gaza. It's not helped aid get into Gaza.
Resident doctors in England ended their 5-day strike this morning in their long-running pay dispute with the government. The BMA is demanding a 29% rise to reverse pay erosion since 2008. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has thanked the NHS staff for minimising disruption, but he's also ruled out reopening pay talks. Over the last few days, thousands of appointments were affected, despite efforts to keep planned care running. From disused tracks to new homes, the government's fast-tracking house building on old railway land. A new company called Platform 4 will manage brownfield sites to help build over 40,000 homes over the next 10 years, replacing a fragmented system split between rail bodies. It will initially focus on England and Wales, with scope to reach Scotland. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander laid out her plans to GB News.
People across the country in our towns and our cities are crying out for new life to be brought back in to the heart of the places where they live. And so we're going to work in a more coordinated way by bringing together an organisation called London and Continental Railways with Network Rail's Property Development Group. We think that over the next decade we could build 40,000 homes.
And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham. The hearse will pass the Black Sabbath bench at 1 o'clock today, where thousands have paid tribute to the 76-year-old rock legend. You can see live pictures on your screen now from Birmingham. The Osbourne family has covered the costs for the event, with his wife Sharon and their children Kelly and Jack following the procession before the private funeral later today. Now, a new poll suggests most people think airlines should prioritise punctuality over cutting carbon emissions. 63% of UK adults say ensuring planes take off and land on time should be the sector's main focus, compared with 56% who back reducing emissions. Support for greener flying has dipped since 2020, when 70% said it should be top priority. Campaigners say that both goals should go hand in hand. And history has been made at the Royal Observatory, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created in 1675 to help solve the mystery of sea longitude. Professor Doherty is a leading space physicist and joins a line of prestigious scientists dating all the way back to John Flamsteed. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Before I hand you back to Tom and Emily, let's take a quick look at the markets.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.338 and €1.158. The Price of gold is £2,491.07 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,112 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 10 minutes past midday. Now, the backlash is growing over the Prime Minister's plan to formally recognise the state of Palestine in September at a UN meeting in New York.
Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. But right now, that goal is under pressure like never before. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the state of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
So there you go. Yes, Sakir there making the announcement after an emergency cabinet meeting on the crisis in Gaza yesterday afternoon.
Well, in response, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has said his country will not agree to the conditions set out by Downing Street, which includes a long-term peace plan based on a two-state solution.
But many people are asking if the Prime Minister is simply rewarding Hamas terrorists by doing this.
Yes, those are the words of the Israeli Prime Minister. So let's debate it with the social campaigner Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Romain and the human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Dr. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us. Let's kick off with you first. What do you make of this charge that the Prime Minister is rewarding terrorism?
Unfortunately, I think it's true. It's a totally bizarre decision on so many levels. Let me just give you four very brief points. Firstly, why should a political decision, such as statehood, be dependent on ending a famine? I mean, the famine's terrible. Everyone knows that. But it's nothing to do with borders and government. Secondly, ask yourself what Hamas hoped to achieve when it attacked Israel on October the 7th. You know, killing, 1,200 Israelis and then scarpering back over the border with hostages. It wasn't going to topple Israel. It never intended that. What it did want was some kind of political reward, and they've got it. And it's not just a terrible message to Hamas, it's a terrible message to all other terrorists, all other causes around the world. Take hostages and you get what you want. Thirdly, recognising statehood. Yes, it could have been a very important diplomatic tool as and when there were serious negotiations, and it maybe could have been used to push them over the line. That's used, it's gone. They've lost all future leverage. And finally, I think it's right to label this, as some people have done, as sort of virtue signalling. It doesn't change anything on the ground. All it does is play catch up with Macron, and it quells Labour backbenchers. So it really was a ridiculous decision, and I think one we're going to regret.
OK, some strong points there. Let's put that to you, Peter. The central question, is the Prime Minister rewarding terrorism?
Well, the Palestinian people have a right to their own state, just like the Jewish people have a right to their own state. This is not about rewarding Hamas. Hamas has negligible support among Palestinians. A recent poll showed that only 6% of people in Gaza would vote for Hamas if there was an election tomorrow. So you cannot equate Hamas with the Palestinian people. Recognition of a state is not rewarding Hamas. It is giving justice to the people of Palestine who've been dispossessed for so many years. On the Palestinian side, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has condemned terrorism. He's condemned the killing of civilians. He's demanded the release of the hostages, and he supports a two-state solution. On the Israeli side, Benjamin Netanyahu opposes a two-state solution. So the roadblock to peace, which involves a two-state solution, is being blocked by the Israeli government, not by the legitimate leader of the Palestinian people, President Mahmoud Abbas. We have to start from the basics. We have to end this war right now. Israel doesn't have a peace plan. It's only got a war plan, and that will continue killing tens of thousands of civilians, including many children, which is totally unacceptable. Hamas is wrong. Hamas must be defeated, but not at the expense of killing so many innocent civilians, which is what Israel has done. and which does amount to war crimes.
Jonathan, what do you make of the argument that actually sort of Hamas is pretty much over and done with? Their senior leadership have been wiped out. They're not a significant force to reckon with, at least politically, anymore. The British government has decided that all it needs to do is put pressure on Israel rather than the other side.
Well, that doesn't stand up to fact. I mean, by the way, I should say I agree with Peter on a lot of other issues, and I certainly support the idea of a two-state solution. But there's no doubt that this is being perceived by Hamas as a reward. They actually said so. They said thank you. They said they praised Macron and now Starmer. It's being perceived as a reward by Israel. Yes, of course, let's have a two-state solution. And yes, of course, we need to recognise the Palestine at some point, but not now when it achieves absolutely nothing, when Hamas is still holding the hostages. I mean, look, they could have released the hostages, both those that are alive and the bodies. They aren't doing that. They are holding out. They are resisting. It's still an active force and giving no indication of a ceasefire, no indication of returning hostages. So what is this doing other than rewarding them? And by the way, one other little thing that hasn't been mentioned is it's often said that there's a closed border and Israel isn't letting supplies in. Well, don't forget that there is a border between Gaza and Egypt. Why isn't Egypt letting aid in? What is it that they think about Hamas or fear about Hamas that we in the West haven't cottoned on to? So there's still a lot of work to do before we get to that really important peace process.
I mean, Peter, there is a concern that there have been no conditions put on Hamas for the recognition of Palestine, only conditions put on Israel, so no requirement to, for example, fully dismantle their terrorist infrastructure.
Well, of course, they should dismantle their terrorist infrastructure, absolutely.
But there's no condition, though, for the recognition of the Palestinian state. That's why people believe that this is rewarding Hamas.
Hamas no longer has any power. It is a dismembered organisation. It doesn't have a state. The state of Palestine is run by the Palestinian Authority and the West Bank, President Mahmoud Abbas. He is the genuine spokesperson for the people of Palestine. Not everyone supports him, but hardly anybody now supports Hamas. Hardly anybody in Palestine.
And you believe that is a functioning, fully functioning political authority, because that is one of the criteria for statehood?
Well, the Palestinian Authority is a de facto state. It already has many of the functions of a state. And what this decision to recognise the Palestinian state would be to ensure that that statehood is actually officially recognised. We can't go over the old ground. Hamas is discredited. People in Palestine, there have been huge mass protests across Gaza for the last 4 months by tens of thousands of Gazans who oppose Hamas. It's clear that public opinion in Gaza is against Hamas, and to equate the people of Palestine with Hamas is a monstrous misrepresentation.
But Peter, of course,
we cannot punish the Palestinian people because of the misdeeds of Hamas.
But Peter, of course, there is a question mark here in terms of how on earth do you get to a point of negotiation if Hamas cannot be part of that negotiation? How on earth do you get to a position where there is some sort of authority in Gaza that isn't Hamas? Surely the only way to dislodge them is militarily, and then you're just swapping out Israeli bombs for American bombs or NATO bombs or however else you're going to dislodge the Hamas authority in the Gaza Strip.
Well, of course, the Palestinian Authority could take over the administration of the Gaza Strip. And in due
course,
course,
does that not need to happen first, Peter? This is the question. Does that not need to happen first? Because I'll put that to Jonathan. That this appears like virtue signalling, considering what actual impact is the UK recognising Palestine as a state going to actually help in any peace process, Jonathan?
Well, yeah, exactly right. And the problem is that the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and Peter's right that it is in control, but only just by the skin of its teeth. It hasn't dared have an election for, what, 20 years? Because otherwise it would get thrown out. So, you know, to start thinking in democratic Western terms is totally wrong. And also, it's well known for being corrupt. It can hardly govern the West Bank. There are terrible problems there. I mean, yes, of course, there is settler violence, but there's also Arab-on-Arab violence. It is not a successful government, and whether it will be accepted in Gaza, well, that's a very big question. It certainly got rejected by the people of Gaza, who, when they did last have a vote, preferred Hamas to the Palestinian Authority. So, yes, of course, we've got to try with all our heart and all our might to get to that peace process, but just sort of throwing statehood at them is just a meaningless gesture, and is really a substitute for real work.
OK, we started with you, so let's give a final word to Peter Tatchell on this debate.
Can I just remind everyone that when those elections were held 20-odd years ago, Hamas did not win a majority. A majority of people voted against Hamas, but it seized power in Gaza and massacred supporters of the democratic secular Palestinian organization, Fatah, and the PLO. Let's remember that the Palestinian Authority and its main organizations, at least in principle, believe in democracy and secularism. They're opposed to the kind of...
No, they don't. They haven't had dared to have an election.
Religious state. They're opposed to the kind of theocratic religious state that Hamas seeks to impose. I think we have to go with what we've got at the moment. Anything is better than Hamas.
Okay.
And I think a state is the precondition to solving this issue of Middle East conflict.
Okay, well, Peter Tatchell, thank you. Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Romain, thank you as well. I think we're also neglecting the fact that there are a lot of people in that part of the world who don't want Israel to even exist. So there is that, which is quite fundamental. But let us know your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. A lot of people would consider that Keir Starmer is perhaps doing this for political reasons as well, which is worth noting.
In the room, absolutely. But we're going to move on to another issue now. Of course, an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, one of the strongest ever recorded, struck eastern Russia overnight. This has triggered tsunami warnings across the Pacific.
Yes, so tsunami waves have already reached California, they've already reached Hawaii, and they're prompting mass evacuations.
But Hawaii's tsunami warning has now been downgraded to only advisory. Residents are being told it is safe to return, but dangerous tides persist. But how much further is this spreading? If Hawaii is safe, where might not be?
Well, exactly. We're going to speak to an expert on this, the director of the International Tsunami Information Centre, because there were deep concerns that this could potentially lead to, well, mass death. We've seen the most awful tsunamis in recent years. I remember back to the Boxing Day, was it 2004? Which was quite extraordinary. It took the world completely by shock. Doesn't look as though we're reaching anything like that, hopefully, and that perhaps things are looking okay.
But there is always the danger that we think, you know, just because this warning has been lifted for Hawaii, I mean, that is quite a long way away from the epicentre of this earthquake. There are lots of islands in the Pacific Ocean, many of which much more low-lying than Hawaii. There is a huge amount of concern for many, many people, perhaps in less developed countries, in terms of what this surge of water could actually sort of reap upon them.
Well, it's quite extraordinary that 1.9 million people have been told to evacuate in Japan. Absolutely huge evacuation. That includes workers at the Fukushima nuclear plant, for obvious reasons. And potentially, experts are saying that these waves could persist for a number of days.
Absolutely. We're looking at live pictures of Hawaii now, where we can see, actually, not that much, given that it's the other side of the world and therefore the dead of night.
Yes, it's 1:23 in the morning over there.
Yes, but we did earlier see some real storm surging from the sea. Some quite dramatic imagery. But, of course, as we say, that warning in Hawaii now lifted.
Yeah, you've had tourists having to, well, very speedily evacuate cruise ships outside of Hawaii and the like. But we are going to move on from this because there's another story. which involves 12 veterans. They were served eviction papers up in Bolton, just completely out of the blue.
Yes, a letter hit the doormat and told them to get out in a month without giving any reason.
Now, GBNews' Patrick Christys last night spoke to Councillor Trevor Jones along with 3 veterans, Scott, Gary and Andy. Let's take a listen.
Question, what's the reason for it? They didn't have an answer. I asked them what they've got in place for us if we do get evicted. They still didn't have an answer. They said we've got 2 months to do whatever. Like, stress levels in this building with all the boys and girls in here is just so high at the moment, you know what I mean? I'm 53 at the moment. If I get made homeless, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got no family now, you know what I mean? So I'm going to be stuck.
Really, really concerning stuff there. I mean, people left in the most desperate situation. Let's speak to Mr. Patrick Carver, Mr. Emily Carver. Patrick Christys is here on the line with us. Patrick, thanks so much for being with us. A really moving story, actually, from you last night, with these guys in a complete bind now.
Absolutely. Well, look, I would just like to start by thanking all of our veterans and all the members of our armed forces for everything that they do. And the Council and the Housing Association appear to have made a catastrophic mistake here. And frankly, I don't think we're going to stand for it. You do not make veterans homeless. We have veterans being treated like second-class citizens in their own country, it would seem, and they fought for us. Perhaps now it's time for us to fight for them. For a bit more detail on this, I've read this morning some statements from the local council and the Housing Association. Now, they seem to be saying, hey, look, don't worry, we're not going to be putting asylum seekers in there. Well, hang on a minute. That's not the point. Obviously, it would be an additional kick in the nuts if veterans were turfed out to make way for new arrivals, but that is not the point. The point is that you're about to turf veterans out onto the streets, potentially, who've served multiple tours in the Middle East, experienced the horrors of wars, seen their mates killed, been shot at themselves, risked being blown up, and are now dealing with the mental consequences of that. One lad there that I spoke to in that interview in the extended version revealed that sadly he tried to take his own life. Thankfully, he was unsuccessful. You know, how dare anyone threaten to make these people homeless? And, you know, I will just say this as well. The only reason that people like me and you guys there get to have this kind of conversation, have a very nice life, enjoy the nice things that we do in our lives, and the same goes for the council workers, is because that there are rough, tough men out there like those lads who are prepared to make the ultimate sacrifices and go to places both mentally and physically that we are unwilling or unable to go to in order to secure our freedom and our way of life. And to turf them out onto the street is appalling.
Yeah, also, Patrick, I mean, we've got these statements from the council and the Housing Association now saying that they're working on this, they're going to be in contact with the veterans, we're going to sort something out. Well, OK, but these veterans were telling you last night that they got this eviction notice a couple of weeks ago, at least, had heard absolutely nothing about any other form of accommodation that they might have been offered. They'd just been completely left in limbo. And as you say, PTSD, complex issues as a result of their service. I mean, what a way to treat people. Do you think that perhaps the council is just catching up on this because of potentially some media pressure, Patrick?
Well, it would absolutely appear so, wouldn't it? They wanted these lads to go quietly. And the questions are outstanding still, which is, what are you going to do with that accommodation? So, you know, who is going to live there? Why is the financial decision being made to turf these people out? There appears to be some situation involving housing benefit for these veterans now being denied to them as well. We're trying to get answers from the local council on all of this. But what I will say is this, regardless of whether or not the council is only acting now and the Housing Association is only acting now because of media pressure, there is still the opportunity to put this right. They can issue an apology. They can keep the lads in their homes, but I think actually we want more than that now, because those veterans were telling me that the accommodation they are in is not particularly good. It needs to be decorated a little bit. There's probably issues, I would imagine, with things like plumbing and rising damp. You know, the council and the Housing Association have an opportunity now to put that right. Go in there, apologise to them, give them a guarantee they can stay, redecorate it, give them new mattresses if they need new mattresses, sort the plumbing out, because the thing is, it's a very, very risky game for the council and for the Housing Association to be playing this. You know, there is a standing army of people in Britain who do not like seeing veterans treated like second-class citizens. And, you know, look, I will just say this as well. Regardless of whether or not it's asylum seekers who are going in there, that's a secondary issue. But just as a point, all right, if this had been an accommodation that was being used for asylum seekers, and they had just served an eviction notice, you can guarantee that the local council would currently be moving heaven and earth to find them somewhere to stay. So why are they not doing that for people who have fought for this country?
Well, it does take the biscuit, doesn't it? When you have the Prime Minister sitting before a committee of MPs only 2 weeks ago, saying that there's plenty of accommodation for people, whether they're homeless, whether they're asylum seekers, there's plenty of accommodation. People do turn up on those boats across the channel and get accommodation immediately. And then it takes items on national television news to try and raise the case of veterans in this country. I mean, that does really take the biscuit. The sort of two-tier approach that we're seeing to housing issues in this country. Yes, it doesn't matter whether or not these individuals are being kicked out for one reason or another. As you say, they are being kicked out. And it looked like the council simply did not care in the way that we see the state and various authorities caring so much for people who perhaps have so much less connection to this country.
Yeah, what does it really say about the priorities of Britain as a country? Well, we've got this story. It's happening in Bolton. I've got absolutely no doubt whatsoever that similar stuff is probably happening right up and down the country. And the thing with the veteran community is as well that a lot of them can often be a bit too proud to ask for help for a variety of reasons. And so we're finding out about this. These lads didn't want to go public with it, but we're finding out about it, and they've put their heads above the parapet yet again, and they're telling us about it. But this speaks to a wider national psychological issue. If you judge a country by how you treat your veterans, then frankly, we're not scoring particularly highly at the moment, are we? There's a serious question of priorities here. And this decision, would have had to have gone through various different layers. All right, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's a really bad mistake. But the fact that that mistake was even allowed to happen speaks volumes about the psychology of certain people in positions of power. And we cannot have a situation in Britain where people who have been willing to lay it all on the line, look, for example, we've got junior doctors or resident doctors out striking at the moment. They want a load more money. People in the military can't go on strike. They deserve a pay rise, don't they? This is it. We've got our priorities all wrong in this country at the moment. The minimum level of social contract with people who fought for this country is that they should have a comfortable roof over their heads, and they shouldn't have to have that anxiety and fear of being made homeless.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic thing that these guys did speak out when they did, because a lot of people in this situation, veterans in this situation, may not have the confidence to, go out there onto the media, make a bit of noise about this issue. And it's fantastic that they did, and fantastic that your show obviously amplified this, and that the channel is this morning as well, because there are too many veterans who are homeless. And as Tom says, Keir Starmer says there's plenty of housing. So what's next then Patrick? What can we do to ensure these guys get some accommodation?
All right. Well, look, we have had quite a busy morning, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, because obviously these veterans are already in a slightly delicate situation, I would imagine, mentally and also in terms of their accommodation, clearly. So we are looking at some options. I've been in touch with several people. I think the primary thing, the easiest way out of this, obviously, is for the council and the housing authority to admit the error of their ways and sort it out, right? So there would be that. If not, are there things that people out there can do for them in terms of accommodation or in terms of improving the accommodation that they're in now? Yes, I think there are. And I would just, again, I don't want to sound too menacing or anything like that at all, but I don't think the council and the housing association want to pick this fight. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, a profound statement there. I won't go as far as to say a warning, but perhaps so. Patrick Estes, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it's so interesting, because I remember locally, to me, a couple of years back, there was a migrant hotel, and it came into the local press that the asylum seekers there were going to be moved out to some other accommodation. So here come lots of middle-class do-gooders with their placards saying, no, don't remove them from this housing. They deserve to live here. They deserve to live in this hotel in our area. Where are the placards for these guys?
Yeah.
Being evicted out of the blue.
Well, we should say that a spokesperson for Bolton Council says we share the concerns that have been raised after the Qualitas Housing issued Section 21 notices to armed forces veterans living at Constellation House in Farnworth. We are in discussions with the housing provider to resolve this matter. The council is also in the process of contacting tenants to offer them full support of our housing options and advice team.
Go on, Qualitas Housing have confirmed they have not spoken to Serco and do not have any plans to house asylum seekers in the property. Exempt accommodation providers receive uncapped housing benefits directly in exchange exchange for providing support services to vulnerable tenants. In order to qualify, providers must meet specific criteria to ensure appropriate services and facilities are in place. While the council previously concluded that Constellation House did not meet the required standards, this decision has now been appealed, and we are reviewing the case in line with the legislation. That's from Bolton Council.
Got all that? Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's programme. Indeed, after the break, we'll be live in Birmingham, where Ozzy Osbourne will make his final journey through the city. But first, it's your latest news headlines with Sophia.
Very good afternoon. The latest headlines shortly after 12:30. Tsunami waves have reached California and Hawaii after a massive earthquake triggered warnings around the Pacific region. The 8.8 magnitude quake is the 6th strongest ever recorded. The backlash is growing over the Prime Minister's plans to formally recognise the state of Palestine in September at the UN meeting in New York, with Israel's Prime Minister accusing the PM of monstrous terrorism. Multiple lifeboats have been called out to help with the chaotic scenes in the English Channel as more than 500 small boat migrants attempt to cross to the UK. As one senior maritime security source told GB News, the situation out there is complete chaos. And fans will say goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne today as a procession travels down Broad Street in Birmingham so they can pay their tributes to the rock legend. And history has been made, with Professor Michelle Doherty becoming the first woman ever appointed Astronomer Royal. Approved by the King, she takes on the role originally created to help solve the mystery of longitude at sea. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Mama, I'm coming home. Yes, Ozzy Osbourne comes home one last time.
Yes, the Prince of Darkness, honoured today with a city-wide procession through Birmingham, giving fans the chance to say goodbye as the Black Sabbath legend is celebrated in the place where it all began.
Well, let's cross live to Birmingham now, where GB News reporter Steve Bennett is there for us ahead of this procession, really, through the centre of the town. And Steve, it's getting busier and busier.
It really is. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Incredible scenes. I don't think I've had an atmosphere like this, actually. So much love, so much outpouring of emotion for one of Birmingham's favourite sons. I'm joined by one Ozzy Osbourne fan now, Steve. Steve to Steve, this is. Steve, tell us why you wanted to be here today.
So, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Ozzy was once in a lifetime. Every single person here, we're all here to celebrate the life of one man. He redefined music, he redefined several generations of people. You don't just get up and invent a genre of music that takes off, and without Ozzy there'd be no us. There really would be none of any of this.
Yeah, we were saying earlier, thousands of people up and down Broad Street. Everywhere you can see, there's people who want to pay their last respects to us.
Absolutely. I mean, I came down from the very top, and all the way down, it's tens of thousands of people. At 24 hours' notice, people are called in work, people have sacked off their jobs, people have come from everywhere just to pay their final respects to a once-in-a-lifetime living legend.
You touched on it there. What did he do for metal music and for Birmingham?
So between him and Tony, they invented metal. They took guitars, they made it sound heavier, they made the vocals sound darker, deeper, and they invented an entire genre of music. Without Ozzy and without Black Sabbath, there'd be no heavy metal. It wasn't like Lemmy with rock and roll and blues. Ozzy literally invented an entire genre of music.
We were just talking off camera there, his final concert, which he did just down the road at Villa Park. All that money, $200 million to charity. Incredible.
It's absolutely insane to do that 17 days before he died. Like, the man was on stage, he was frail, he was suffering. He didn't take any pain medication before the show because he wanted to do it completely raw. You could hear in his voice he was sad, he was absolutely heartbroken that it had to end. And his dying gift to Birmingham charities was $200 million. And it's absolutely nuts.
Incredible. Steve, thank you so much. That's just one of the views of the thousands of people who have turned out here on Broad Street to pay their final respects to a legend of the music business of this city, Ozzy Osbourne.
Fantastic stuff to speak to a real fan there, hear from him. Clearly, so much passion for the genre, and Black Sabbath being right at the front of it. Recreating, well, not recreating, creating a whole new genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Steve, we'll be back with you, of course, as things continue to build up there in Birmingham. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Well, we're going to head to the capital now, because new statistics are out and they show that knife crime is surging.
Yes, it's risen by 58% in the last 3 years, with London hotspots of Oxford Circus and Regent Street being those major crime hotspots too.
Yes, this certainly won't help London Mayor Sadiq Khan rise in Donald Trump's estimations.
Not a fan of your mayor. Why not? I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person. I think he's a friend of mine. No, I think he's done a terrible job, but I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Donald Trump was talking about knife crime there, where he was talking badly about Sadiq Khan, but we do want to ask the question, is this Sadiq Khan's fault, this rise in knife crime and other types of crime too in our capital city?
Well, let's discuss this now with Andy Williams, the political commentator, and the retired Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Mike, we'll kick off with you. What do you reckon?
I reckon there's several people to blame here, and the political classes are equally to blame across what you might style as the uni-party. So you've got Sadiq Khan, who campaigned heavily against Stop and Search, said it was racist. On the other side of the coin, you had Theresa May as the Tory Home Secretary doing exactly the same. And you had many, many senior officers in the police advocating that Stop and Search should be substantially reduced. Indeed, Craig Mackey, who was the Deputy Commissioner of the Met for many years, he was actually knighted for reducing Stop and Search. So I think all these people are to blame for this increase in knife crime and the murders and robberies which results because of it.
Andy, knife crime has risen under Sadiq Khan's watch. Is it his fault?
Well, I think, as Mike says, you know, he is partly to blame. There's no doubt about it. He's in charge of London. He has to be accountable for that. That's why politicians are elected. But what I'd also say is that this is only one part of the picture, and I've heard a lot of nonsense all over places like Twitter and on various news outlets about how London is basically too dangerous to set foot in these days. You can't go to central London without having a watch snatched off your hand or without being stabbed. We have to be clear about the fact that, you know, London has the biggest population of any city in the UK by quite a long way, and that is one of the reasons why it's responsible for so much knife crime. So we need to look at it in context. In terms of stop and search, I broadly agree with Mike in terms of we need more stop and search. We need a zero tolerance approach to things like knife crime. If you are caught with a knife in your hand in London, you should automatically be arrested and banged up. I think that's very clear. But there are problems with stop and search. It's not inherently racist, but there is no doubt that a disproportionate number of people of colour are stopped and searched.
But Andy, a disproportionate number of people of colour are involved in knife crime. I mean, surely these two things...
Can I answer that question?
Go on then.
Can I make that point as well? So it's exactly, the police cannot help who commits crime. So 60% of knife murders in London are committed by young black men, often against young black men. But only 2% of London's population are young black men. So that means they're committing crime 30 times higher than they should do if everybody committed the same. And if the police were inherently racist, they would go around stopping elderly Asian ladies who wouldn't give them any grief, and they could bully them. So why pick on young men who are big and strong? It's what happens here is the police are frightened now to deal with criminals, and the consequences are that people die. And all this talk of racism is really bad. As I keep reiterating, the young officers on the street, they simply cannot help who commits crime. They don't force young black men to shoot or stab each other, but that's what happens a lot, and the police have to deal with the mess.
Also, Andy, I mean, it is true that Sadiq Khan has been very sceptical of stop and search as a police tactic altogether. I'm just looking at a headline back in 2018. Sadiq Khan, I'd do everything in my power to cut, stop and search. I mean, with that attitude, what chance do we have?
I'm not here saying that Sadiq Khan is a 10 out of 10 mayor of London. I think Sadiq Khan is a 6 out of 10 mayor of London, right? I think he's perfectly fine. Don't think he's the best politician who's ever run a major city, right? What I'm saying is it's not entirely his fault. I think stop and search is part of the solution. I acknowledge Mike's points, but I do think if we're going to roll out a broader programme of stop and search in London, we need to make sure that all police officers are educated on how to do that, and they make sure that they're not by accident or because of unconscious bias or whatever picking on certain groups. I accept that some of those groups are more likely to commit crime than others, but we do need to be mindful of that. I think that's important.
Okay. It is interesting, actually, that 6 out of 10 statistic, because a lot of people are sort of asking this question: how does this man keep getting elected as Mayor of London? And everyone I speak to, it's the people who vote for him not because they love him, but because all the other options in their view would be worse. I'm just interested to press you on that a little bit, Andy. Do you think that sort of Sadiq Khan has almost won by default over the course of the last 3 mayoral elections?
Well, I think in the last mayoral election he won by default because he was up against Susan Hall, who's one of the worst major political candidates in frontline politics that I've ever seen. I mean, she was unbelievably bad and totally incapable of taking on a major political role in this country. So I certainly think he won last time by default. There's obviously something about the fact that London, like a few other major cities in the UK, it leans strongly Labour. Whether that will remain the case for the next 10, 20 years remains to be seen. But I think there's absolutely something about putting a red rosette on some...
Yeah.
Say again?
He's the Labour candidate, so
you look at Andy Burnham, who wins with 72%, and then you look at Sadiq Khan, who scrapes 40%, and you sort of think
Well, yeah. Andy Williams, Mike Neville, thank you very much.
Right, and Sadiq Khan doesn't.
OK, well, thank you very much for your time, both of you. Good debate there to be had. I do say when people say, oh, people are a bit exaggerating, London's absolutely fine, people are taking precautions. People take precautions in the way that they live their lives, not taking their phone out, not going to this certain area at this time at night, not going down that road that they used to walk down.
I've got to say, the only time
I certainly do as a young woman.
The only time I've had my phone stolen in London was 2018. Haven't had it stolen since, so that was...
Maybe you're a little more careful there.
Maybe I'm more careful. But I do think this 3
Or maybe you just look stronger and less and scarier.
I definitely am stronger than I was 7 years ago.
Yes, it might be that, Might be that.
But I don't know. I think also some of these statistics, measuring from 3 years ago, when we still had pandemic restrictions, when people were going out less, I think it's sort of inevitable that crime will be higher than some of the pandemic years.
Yeah. Well, let us know your thoughts. But if you're in search of some holiday sun away from the capital, or anywhere else for that matter, here's the European travel weather.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heatwave is now easing across parts of Greece and also parts of Turkey, but elsewhere across Europe, still some humid air creating thundery downpours. But across the west, particularly across Portugal, Spain, most of France, it's largely dry, plenty of sunshine. But across parts of Germany, northern parts of Italy, still a chance of some quite intense thundery downpours. And also still across parts of Greece and Bulgaria, we could start to see some outbreaks of rain. But otherwise, for the large majority, plenty of sunshine and warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. We can't rule out the odd shower, but where you do see any sunshine, it is going to be feeling warm. And that's all thanks to high pressure building towards the southwest. But draw your eyes to the northwest of the country, a frontal system lingering on here. So that's where we'll see the bulk of the cloud this afternoon, possibly even some light outbreaks of rain, particularly across western parts of Scotland and eventually clearing Northern Ireland. Now the odd shower, particularly across parts of the southeast, but otherwise a dry afternoon for many. Plenty of sunny spells and a mix of cloud too. Feeling warm, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius across the south, but even across northern areas, many towns and cities reaching the low 20s. Now, as we progress further into the evening, there's still going to be a fair amount of clouds, some light outbreaks of rain, this time pushing into central parts of Scotland, though northeastern parts of Scotland should remain mostly dry. Any rain clearing away from Northern Ireland, so it should be quite a pleasant end to the day, and fairly similar once again across the rest of England and Wales. Still a chance of the odd isolated shower across the southeast, but many should see a dry end to the day. And it remains fairly similar through the course of the evening. Still some light outbreaks of rain affecting northeastern parts of Scotland. Then we do just need to keep an eye on this system pushing into Wales and central parts of England as we head towards dawn. A chance we could start to see some heavy showers through the course of the morning, but for many once again remaining mostly dry, and it's going to be particularly mild as well once again across the southeast. Many lows not dropping much past 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Now, it's really across central areas and parts of the south that is a bit of a watch point tomorrow. Some quite heavy, possibly thundery showers pushing into central and southern parts. So this could bring some hail and also some frequent lightning. So do take care if you're out and about. Also the odd shower across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but elsewhere plenty of sunshine and once again feeling warm.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A725 northbound Belsey Hill roundabout on slip is closed for maintenance, with motorists advised to follow the signed diversion. The A487 is shut between Gasworks and Fishguard Square roundabouts, with diversions in place. Other disruptions include a collision on Leicestershire's M1 southbound at junction 19, closing all lanes. In Surrey, a broken-down vehicle on the M23 northbound shuts one lane between junctions 9 and 8. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Milton Keynes Central and London Euston, affecting Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
12:50 is the time. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. Now, for the first time ever in history, a woman has been named Astronomer Royal.
Yes, the space physicist Professor Michelle Doherty has taken on the role after 350 years of men having the role.
Yes, she's explored the solar system and now she's advising the king on all things cosmic.
Well, we're joined by the astrophysicist at the University of Nottingham and host of the Space Mog YouTube channel, Dr. Maggie Liu. Maggie, thanks so much for being with us. I mean, historically, the Astronomer Royal has been such an important role, whether it's winning the prime meridian for Britain, making sure that Greenwich is the centre of time in the world, or naming Halley's Comet. I mean, all of these things have come from the Astronomer Royal. But I think the last time that the Astronomer Royal did something of that significant was probably over 100 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Traditionally, this role was tied to being the director of the Greenwich Observatory, but now it's purely an honorary role. But it still has huge significance because the Royal Astronomer will kind of lead things in all things astronomy and advise King Charles, for example. But I think it's also important that it's a huge kind of inspiration role for people to get into STEM, and specifically young girls who tend to kind of be kind of deterred from roles in STEM because they don't see people that look like them, like women, in these big roles. This is hugely prestigious, and hopefully it will inspire more young people and young girls to get into the role. But it's not all about being women as well. Like Michelle Doherty is a fantastic scientist, right? So she was involved. She was the PI of one of the instruments on Cassini, going to Saturn's moons, and discovered, well, her team discovered that there was water vapor in the atmosphere of Saturn's moon Enceladus. And now she's also leading on a instrument on the JUICE mission that will go to Jupiter's icy moons, again to explore the potentials of life around Jupiter.
Pretty cool stuff. I mean, you as a woman yourself and as an astrophysicist, do you get a lot of young women and girls getting in touch with you, I don't know, on LinkedIn or email asking, how can I do what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. And I also get a lot of young girls. So I teach at the University of Nottingham, and a lot of the girls there also say, like, I don't see myself in a professorship position or staying on in academia or doing STEM because I don't see people like me. And the more women that I see in these positions, the more confident I am to be around those kind of environments.
Well, let's hope that more people are inspired, and I'd like some more discoveries for this country.
That'd be nice.
We used to be nigh on the majority of discoveries in the world. I think we've slipped down the rankings somewhat in recent years, but perhaps we can rise back up. Dr. Maggie Liu, thanks so much for joining us and talking through this historic appointment.
Oh, well, maybe Professor Michelle and Dr. Maggie can sort that out.
Yeah, I'd like to discover a new planet. I think it's about
That'd be
time.
nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, why are so many young Brits ready to quit the UK under Labour, including Labour voters? A bit depressing. We'll find out what the reason is after the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many should see a dry day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. We can't rule out the odd shower, but where you do see any sunshine, it is going to be feeling warm. And that's all thanks to high pressure building towards the southwest. But draw your eyes to the northwest of the country, a frontal system lingering on here. So that's where we'll see the bulk of the cloud this afternoon, possibly even some light outbreaks of rain, particularly across western parts of Scotland and eventually clearing Northern Ireland. Now the odd shower, particularly across parts of the southeast, but otherwise a dry afternoon for many. Plenty of sunny spells and a mix of cloud too. Feeling warm, highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius across the south, but even across northern areas, many towns and cities reaching the low 20s. Now, as we progress further into the evening, there's still going to be a fair amount of clouds, some light outbreaks of rain, this time pushing into central parts of Scotland, though northeastern parts of Scotland should remain mostly dry. Any rain clearing away from Northern Ireland, so it should be quite a pleasant end to the day, and fairly similar once again across the rest of England and Wales. Still a chance of the odd isolated shower across the southeast, but many should see a dry end to the day. And it remains fairly similar through the course of the evening. Still some light outbreaks of rain affecting northeastern parts of Scotland. Then we do just need to keep an eye on this system pushing into Wales and central parts of England as we head towards dawn. A chance we could start to see some heavy showers through the course of the morning, but for many once again remaining mostly dry, and it's going to be particularly mild as well once again across the southeast. Many lows not dropping much past 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Now, it's really across central areas and parts of the south that is a bit of a watch point tomorrow. Some quite heavy, possibly thundery showers pushing into central and southern parts. So this could bring some hail and also some frequent lightning. So do take care if you're out and about. Also the odd shower across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, but elsewhere plenty of sunshine and once again feeling warm.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
27 now. Heaven, Health and Beauty in Shropshire is celebrating the official unveiling of their royal warrant today.
Well, it's been recognised as the supplier of skincare products and treatments to Her Majesty the Queen after she first used the company's products 19 years ago. She's a loyal customer.
She is a loyal customer. Jack Carson has been getting the treatment.
I was just like, I wish my mum was here to see this.
There's a beaming smile on the face of Heaven Health and Beauty founder Deborah Mitchell as she celebrates the unveiling of their royal warrant. Starting her business with £10 in her pocket in 1995, Deborah says she's worked from the ground up and started providing skincare treatments to Her Majesty the Queen 19 years ago. Today she says she's honoured to be a recipient of a royal warrant.
It is a feeling that you cannot explain, but I was very lucky before having the royal warrant when Camilla Parker Bowles was Camilla Parker Bowles, and I didn't tell anybody I did her treatments. It hit in the press, and then this product, which is the bee venom made from bees, makes the skin look younger using a Botox alternative.
The King and Queen have granted royal warrants to almost 400 companies that supply the royal household, with each one lasting up to 5 years. It also means those companies can display the royal arms on their products. Director and daughter of Deborah, Ella Mitchell, makes this business a family affair, and she's made sure the packaging is already getting a fresh look. Ella says she's proud the products are made in Britain.
The achievement itself, you feel proud to be British, and I think that's one of the core values of us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, here we are. We are in Birmingham, bringing you live pictures as Ozzy Osbourne's Birmingham funeral is upcoming in just a few moments. We're expecting to see the procession very soon indeed. This is the heart of Birmingham. Thousands and thousands of fans there. As you can see, tributes are lining the road there.
Absolutely. You're watching and listening to Good Afternoon Britain at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 30th of July, with Emily Carver and me, Tom Harwood.
You are indeed. I believe we have our reporter Steve Bennett on the line, who's there in Birmingham for us. Steve, what can you hear? I can feel the anticipation building.
Yeah, incredible scenes down here. Thousands and thousands of people have turned out to pay tribute to one of their favourite sons, Ozzy Osbourne. One of those people is Noel, right next to me. Noel, why are you here today? Why was it so important for you to come down?
Celebrate Ozzy's life, you know. It's what he's done for heavy metal, for Birmingham in particular as well. Old Astonian, you know, so it's just well loved, obviously, by the amount of people here. You can see how much he's loved, you know, so... Yeah,
it really is incredible, isn't it? On 24 hours' notice, this many people to come out.
So there's tens of thousands of people here, all celebrating the one man. So, you know, Black Sabbath as well, to be fair. So definitely made a new genre of music, spanned the whole world. What more can you say?
What did he do for Birmingham, the city itself?
Well, I think, like I said, we're all proud of him because of what he took it worldwide. You know, complete genre of music nobody heard before, straight from Aston, you know, the four lads from Aston, just makes a whole Birmingham proud. So,
and not many people who didn't like Ozzy. Everyone I've spoken to in Birmingham and away from Birmingham, very popular man, wasn't he?
I think if you're not into that kind of music, you know, just his personality just spoke volumes, you know, for him. So it's fantastic.
No, really good speech. Thank you, mate. Enjoy the processions. That should be happening any moment behind me. Tens of thousands of people lining Broad Street here for at least a mile, as far as the eye can see. A real touching opportunity for the locals to pay tribute to one of their favourite sons, rocker Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, fantastic. And I imagine people have travelled far and wide as well. It won't just be Brummies there today, I'm sure. So as it stands, we know that the procession is already on its way, is it? And do you know where it's going through?
That's right, it's just about to begin at 1 o'clock and it's going to come down Broad Street here. This is the main opportunity for, like I said, the locals and the non-locals, everyone who's come into Birmingham to pay their last respects. Friends and family, particularly Ozzy's family, will be next to that procession as well, and worth noting that all the costs have been covered by the Osbournes as well to make sure that Birmingham, the city of Birmingham, had the opportunity to say their goodbyes. And then from there, the procession goes on to a private funeral where we expect some celebrity guests, including Elton John, to pay their respects as well. You can hear the locals are chanting. We've had a few now people climbing on bus shelters, up on roofs to make sure they get their best spot. They all want to pay their tribute to Ozzy Osbourne.
It's so clear that Ozzy and his whole family hold Birmingham so dearly in their hearts, and certainly held Birmingham so dearly in their hearts too. I mean, covering those costs for what will no doubt be a significant security operation today. I mean, all of those people, it won't come cheap to police that, to host that for the city. But also, of course, that amazing amount of money that was raised by Ozzy Osbourne in his final concert just a few weeks ago, just 2 weeks before his death. I mean, that money raised for charities, for locals, is such a huge legacy to the area.
Incredible. Every single penny of that concert, back to the beginning concert at Villa Park, every single penny went to local charities. $200 million, so I think that's about £140 million. That is incredible. What a thing to do. Organise a concert of that size, not only to say his goodbyes to Birmingham, pay his respects, his tributes to the city that made him, but to give all that money to charity so that people just like him can have better treatment, can suffer less. He didn't do it on any medication. He wanted to feel the moment. First time he's played Villa Park, his home football team. Really incredible scenes, and it's even more incredible now that we know that just a few days later, 17 days later, he sadly passed.
So Ozzy Osbourne's coffin is going to be driven along Broad Street. It's then going to pause at the Black Sabbath Bridge for obvious reasons, and for more fans to gather there as well. And there is going to be a private funeral, isn't there? But it's going to be star-studded, isn't it, Steve?
Exactly that. So the Black Sabbath Bridge is just to my right, just down here, and already thousands of people are already there. They've been there since the early hours, and as you said, then it goes on to a private funeral. We expect celebrities like Elton John to be in attendance, you know, fellow musicians, fellow rockers who want to pay their respects as well to a man who, as the locals have been telling me, really created the industry, really created metal music and put not only the music on the map, but put Birmingham on the map, and it's something he has not forgotten, hence why this is happening today. And it really does feel like a two-way relationship between the fans and between the Osbournes, a remarkable atmosphere here so that everybody can really celebrate the life of a fantastic man.
I mean, it is just astonishing to see the scale of how many people have been touched by Ozzy Osbourne's music. I mean, let's not forget, he was someone who did not come from sort of the most well-to-do family. There's no reason you'd have expected him to become the global megastar that he did, that he became. I mean, he rose up through grit, determination, and above all else, talent, to become this icon on both sides of the Atlantic, and indeed further around the world as well. A true son of Birmingham who has clearly left a legacy not just in this England's second city, but also right around the world.
Yeah, transcended music, really. I'm sure we can all remember they had a reality show, The Osbournes, if you remember that. Probably the first proper reality show. Wasn't scripted, we just saw the family, we peeled back the curtain and we saw what life was like for the Osbournes, and it was incredible. And you could see from there what a gentle man he was, how kind he was, how he just went about his business. He was just such a humble man, never forgot his early beginnings here in Birmingham, and even more reason to come back now. And I just saw an episode of The Osbournes recently where he crashed his quad bike and almost killed himself, you know, here on his British estate that he has here, you know, in this country. And he always made it very clear how proud he was to be English, to be British, very patriotic. So much for the music industry, so much for this city, Birmingham, like you said, England's second city. And just that gesture of giving back all that money to charity to make sure that other people have better treatment than him, suffer less than him. That is, I mean, that's more than music, isn't it? That is something that, what a thing to do, to put on an emotional concert like that, which made it even more poignant that 17 days later he passed, knowing all that money went to help other people less fortunate than himself. Incredible. And we can just see the procession is coming down now to my left. You might be able to see live pictures of that. The opportunity for now these locals who've been waiting all morning to pay their respects to a really great, not just a musician, but a great man and his family flanking that procession. Emotional day for them, no doubt, for Sharon, for Jack, for Kelly. Great. And as I mentioned earlier, the atmosphere is something I've never really sensed before. Everybody wants to talk to us. Everybody wants to share their anecdotes of Ozzy Osbourne, what he meant to them, what he meant to their family, how he got them into music, how he put Birmingham on the map. wonderful, a really wonderful celebratory atmosphere. We all knew that Ozzy wasn't very well, but still came as a shock for him to pass at 76.
And the fashion.
Who's ever ready for that? Who's ever ready for a legend? Exactly. Who's ever ready for a legend of that kind to pass? So you might
I mean,
well see
it's
these
so
live
interesting,
pictures now.
Steve, to hear the music.
Yeah.
The sort of, it's not a celebration, it's a commemoration, but of course people, I suppose, feel that Ozzy got to say his own goodbye. Of course it's a moment of sadness for so many people, but also it was such a fitting end to such a legend. I suppose that sort of somewhat explains the strange atmosphere around you, people singing along, people getting along, in a way perhaps you might not normally expect of a funeral procession.
You're absolutely right, and there's been so many sound bites from that final concert, the Back to the Beginning concert, where he was talking about it being his last one. He wanted to say his goodbyes. It's almost like he knew it was coming. You know, he knew that the end potentially was coming, as potentially his family did as well, and he really put on a show without any drugs, any medication, so that he could say his proper goodbyes to his adoring fans here in Birmingham. At the football club he loved the most, Aston Villa. First time he played that ground as well, and as you said, explains the atmosphere that we're feeling here. Everybody really is celebrating his life, honoured to be here, to be part of it. The rows of people, it's 25 deep all the way down Broad Street here. Tens of thousands of people, some skiving off work, and rightly so. You can hear the chanting, a great atmosphere here on Broad Street as they see that procession pass down, and it is...
Here he comes.
It's very difficult to explain the emotion here. But we can just see it over our left shoulder here.
Yeah, Steve, we're looking at
Everyone with their
pictures now
camera
of
phones out,
flashing
everybody
lights
enjoying.
of those motorcyclists, that police escort ahead of the procession going past what we can see to be incredibly thick